All right, everybody, we'll go ahead and get started with tonight's planning and zoning work session. And I'm going to kick it straight over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Crystal. Okay, we're going to do something a little different and break into the executive session, but I need a motion to do that first. So is there a motion on the table?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
pursuant to Idaho Code Sections 74-2061F, I move to enter executive session to communicate with legal counsel to discuss pending litigation.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Is there a second?
Second.
And there's a second by Commissioner Torres. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Danley.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Mooney.
Yes.
Seha.
Yes.
Torres.
Yes.
Doan.
Yes.
All in favor. Motion carries.
Okay. Relocate.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. We have a few opening remarks, and then the chair will discuss how we'll proceed this evening. The commission is made up of citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. They make final decisions on conditional use permits. If a decision is made tonight, it may be appealed to the city council, provided the appeal is filed within 10 days of the final decision. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written testimony in advance or verbal testimony at tonight's hearing. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony, and we are strict with this time as it is limited in code. The commission utilizes a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you all for coming out tonight on this Monday evening. Some of you big basketball fans would probably rather be at home watching the game. I understand it, but thank you for joining us and thank you for participating in this process. I'm going to read something, so bear with me. Before we start tonight, I would like to remind all of us of why we are here and what that means and how we behave. Our main goal tonight is to have a fair hearing, a hearing where all voices are heard with courtesy and respect. And so we have a couple of simple rules for tonight's hearing. First, do not call out, cheer, clap, or heckle from the audience. Please do not interrupt the speaker. Everyone will get a chance to speak. And second, when speaking, please address your comments to the commissioners and not to other audience members or to the applicant or city staff. If we receive comments with raised voices or profanities, we will stop your time and push you to the end of the line for public comments. If you ask a question, the applicant may choose to answer your question during their rebuttal time, but the commission cannot answer questions during testimony. We are here to listen to all the evidence and make a decision. We have a lot of interest in this item tonight, so I want to line out a few things. If you've submitted written comments ahead of the hearing, we want to make it clear that the commission has read them. By my count, I think it was about 140 pages of written comment. And so we read it. Just to reiterate, you do not need to repeat your comments verbally tonight. We'd like to make sure we hear from everyone who wants to speak, but do not need to hear from those who have already submitted written comments or the same comments over again. Thank you again for coming tonight. Your participation is important, and equally important is that we treat each other with kindness and respect, regardless of their opinion. So with that, we'll go ahead and start and take roll. Clerk, please call the roll.
Danley.
I am here.
Moore. Schaefer.
Present.
Mooney.
Here.
Seha.
Here.
Torres.
Here.
Doan.
Here.
6 present, 1 absent.
Great. Okay, and as mentioned, we start each meeting with the forming of the consent agenda. The first items eligible for the consent agenda consist of the work session meetings from March 3rd and the commission meetings also from March 3rd, as well as the work session meetings from March 10th and the commission meetings also from March 10th. If there are no comments or issues with the meeting minutes of all 4, I'll go ahead and place those on the consent agenda. Does anybody have any issues? No, okay, so all will be moved to the consent agenda. The next item that's eligible for the consent agenda is item number 1. SUB 24-46, Troya Place subdivision located at 5605 West Fremont Street. This is a preliminary and final plat. Is the applicant in attendance? Okay, let the record show that the applicant is in attendance. And do you agree with the terms and conditions in the staff report? Okay, great. Let the record also show that the applicant is in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report. Is there anybody in chambers or online who wishes to testify against item number 1, SUB 24-46? Seeing no hands, are there any on Zoom? Okay. So with that, and without any objection, I'll go ahead and place item number 1 on the consent agenda. Okay, bear with me. All right, we're getting there. Okay, next up and eligible for the consent agenda is item number 2, SUB 25-01, Harris Ranch, Lot SE10 subdivision, located at 4433 East Haystack Street, which is a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision. Is the applicant in attendance?
Yes.
Okay, great. And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let the record show that the applicant is present and agrees with both the terms and conditions of the staff report. Is there anybody in the chambers or online who wishes to testify against item number 2, SUB 25-01? Seeing none, we're good. Okay, without any objection, item number 2 will then be placed on the consent agenda. And that is it for our consent agenda. So do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Seha.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the following agenda items. The March 3rd Planning and Zoning Commission work session minutes, as well as the meeting minutes, and the March 10th work session minutes, as well as the meeting minutes. In addition, item number 1, SUB 24-46 Troya Place subdivision, and item number 2, SUB 25-1 Harris Ranch Lot Southeast or FE10 subdivision.
Thank you, Commissioner Seha. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I think that's Commissioner Torres, yes? Okay, this second by Commissioner Torres. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Danley.
Aye.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Mooney,
Yes.
Seha,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Excellent. Okay, that takes us to item number 3, CVA 24-40, Rodney Evans and Partners LLC, located at 5600 North Pierce Park Lane, and it's a variance. And Jesse Lyle, take it away.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The item before you is SUB 2439 and CVA 2440. This is a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 5 buildable and 1 common lot on 0.98 acres, located at 5600 Pierce Park Lane in an R1C zone. A variance to deviate from the streetscape and access and connectivity standards is also included. As outlined in your project report, all lots within Collins subdivision meet the dimensional standards of the R1C zone. Frontage is provided by a proposed private street within a common lot located on the north side of the property. The common lot also includes the required landscape buffer adjacent to a collector roadway, as well as a driveway that serves as a solid waste turnaround. And the homes on lots 5 and 6 will be fire sprinkled. The applicant is proposing to provide a 10-foot wide detached sidewalk along Pierce Park Lane as required by the development code. The applicant is also providing a 5-foot detached sidewalk along the south side of the private street. However, the applicant has submitted a variance to waive the sidewalk on the north side of the private street. There is a hardship with the property in that there is no possibility for future extension of this private street, and there is limited width on the parcel to install full street improvements without creating a non-conforming setback adjacent to the existing home. Additionally, the applicant is providing detached sidewalk on the south side of the private road, which provides a safe path for future pedestrians within the subdivision to Pierce Park Lane. Since the publication of the project report, the planning team received ACHD comments approving the project with site-specific and standard conditions of approval. Additionally, comments from the neighborhood were received with some general questions and comments about the proposal, which were included in your packet. As detailed in the project report, the planning team finds that this application is consistent with the approval criteria for the subdivision and variance request to waive the sidewalk requirements on the north side of the private road and recommends approval. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lau. Applicant, Ben, familiar face.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Ben Semple with Rodney Evans and Partners, 1450 West Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho 83702. First of all, we are in agreement with the terms and conditions in the staff report, including the ACHD staff report that was late correspondence. I primarily just want to address the comments that were received from the neighbors. I actually spoke with the neighbors that submitted these questions as well on the phone and kind of talked them through it. I just want to address it for the record. So number one will this be a subdivision or a minor land division? It is a subdivision. My client did have a minor land division approved here in 2021. He didn't get all of the improvements done in time, and so that approval lapsed. And since that, the new zoning code was adopted. So he decided to go with a subdivision instead of a minor land division. Number two, will there be an HOA? There will be an HOA. So they will have architectural control of any of the new homes within here, as well as maintenance of the private street and the landscape within the common lots. The perimeter will be fenced. There's existing fencing on the east and south. There's an existing wire fence along the north. That wire fence will be replaced with a 6-foot privacy fence, and any fencing along the east or south that needs to be addressed condition-wise. My client has indicated that he intends to work with those property owners to make sure that there's a nice consistent 6-foot privacy fence on both those property lines. And then the homeowners would install any future fencing on their individual lots. The shared driveway, private street, it'll be paved, it'll be built to public standards as is required for private street. So paved with asphalt. There will be curb on both the north and south sides of the private street to make sure that all the drainage is collected and disposed of on site. There will be a 5-foot landscape buffer along the north as well. Can't see it very well on this landscape plan, but we intend to put some kind of columnar evergreens on there to help buffer further the residences to the north. The units will all be limited to 2-story in height. These homes, they'll meet the R1C standard for height, be below that. Each unit will have a 2-car garage. The existing home to remain needs a little bit more. It's been renovated, but it needs some more renovations. I've talked to my client. He's considering adapting the back part of the house to create more of a garage situation there. But regardless, any required parking will be outside the setbacks and provided for that single family home. All of the other 4 homes that will be built will have 2-car garages as well as 20-foot deep driveways to accommodate up to 2 additional guest parking spaces. Access for lot 2 will be from the private street. So we'll close the accesses from Pierce Park that currently exist other than the private street connection. There was a question about the preliminary plans showing additional parking. Those are the driveway approaches from the private street into the individual lots. I just showed the concrete approach across the landscape buffer there. They had a question about the 10-foot sidewalk along Pierce Park. As this commission is aware, the Boise City Code rewrite did require 10-foot wide detached multi-use pathways along arterials and collectors. Pierce Park is determined to be, I think it's a minor arterial. And my client is intending to install a 10-foot wide planter strip due to overhead power. So we can do class 1 street trees and then the 10-foot wide multi-use pathway along the frontage, meeting the standards of both ACHD and City of Boise, and ACHD has accepted that condition. There was another question about the alternates that ACHD was looking at. They had 3 different alternatives for their frontage improvements. Nothing has been adopted by them at this time. So my client has to default to the current standards of the City of Boise, which he intends to do. Other than that, I would stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Semple. So we'll move now to the representative of the Neighborhood Association, Doug Drinka in chambers. I can't see. I'm flying blind with Zoom for now, so I don't know if you've got. No, and not in chambers. Oh, expected, but not in attendance. The game's a good one, I guess. Okay. All right. Well, without the Neighborhood Association, we can go ahead and open it up to questions from the commission.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Jesse, quick question on the variance request. It's really because it's stated as access. I can't remember the exact language. Access and streetscape standards. It's really just comes down to not installing the sidewalk on the north side of the shared drive, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that is correct. That section of code that requires that sidewalk on both sides is located in the access and connectivity section of code,
Gotcha.
which is why it's written that way.
Okay, great. Thank you. I guess just a quick follow-up too on that same zone. Applicant indicated there'd be a privacy fence along that north property line. It's an interesting condition there because we have a shared drive on the north side of the property line. Then we have a little landscape strip and then another shared drive. Is code flexible there on that property line? Does it have to be a privacy fence there?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, there is no requirement for fencing the perimeter of a subdivision next to another residential use. But that is something that the neighborhood had requested. And so I think the applicant is responding to that, but they can potentially clarify.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Not yet. We're getting there. All right, any last call? No more questions of the commission? Okay, well, in that case, we're going to go ahead and so what's going to happen is we're going to go to public testimony, and everybody who, if you've not signed up, you will have an opportunity to come ask questions and we'll go from there. But first and foremost, I do have a sign up sheet and I have 2 names on the first line. So I'm going to call one at a time. I believe husband and wife, I think, Cindy and Steve, and I'm not quite able to read the last name. So help me out with that. Schechter? Awesome. Okay, so Cindy, I'm going to have you come up first if you wouldn't mind and follow up with Steve. So if you couldn't. Oh, he's not coming. Okay, he's out. So Cindy, would you like to testify? Okay. If you can, just come up, put that mic in the right spot and just state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, my name is Cindy Schechter. I live at 5600 North Pierce Park Lane, basically the property directly north of the proposed subdivision. And part of my biggest issue really has to do with the right of way and the city's new zoning code for the sidewalk and the landscape buffer, which those types of things I think work really well on a street that hasn't already had quite a bit of development on it. But to me, it makes it doesn't flow very well because you got a sidewalk here and now you're going to have a sidewalk here and then you're going to have a buffer, a landscape zone here or a piece of landscaping here and not here. And it just makes it, to me, look really kind of messy. Plus, there across the street from where we live is also a new development where he's had to donate 20 feet. So there's already a 70-foot right of way here. And then anyway, it's just kind of messy, I think, looking.
Okay.
Where you have a 10-foot sidewalk, a 5-foot sidewalk, a 7-foot sidewalk, all the way up and down. Anyway, that's my issue.
All right. Thank you very much, Cindy. Steve, sure. All right. We're gonna move forward then. Jack, is it Burnstrom?
Yes, Jack Burns.
Yes, okay. Welcome, Jack. If you wouldn't mind, please just state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name's Jack Burnstrom. I live at 5600 North Pierce Park Lane. And I would like the privacy fence because the plat shows a house 5 feet off the property line. And that is right where I drive into my place. And beyond that, the headlights will shine right on into our place. And I would really appreciate the developer put a privacy fence up. I've lived on Pierce Park since 1989. And I love the ruralness, and I just hope, like Cindy, that we would keep it that way as much as we can without these big wide sidewalks and big bicycle lanes, and keep it as much as they can the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out. Okay, I have nobody else on the sign-up sheet, so unless there's anybody online first that wishes to testify, we're getting there on my end, by the way. No? Okay. So if there's anybody in the chambers who wishes to testify, now's your chance. I will say if you have a question, it's not something that we will be able to answer. However, there will be a rebuttal time from the applicant, though if it's a question that might be answered by the applicant, then that might be perfectly fine. So it's up to you or anybody else who wants to testify in this item. Okay, same thing. If you wouldn't mind, sir, just come out and tell us your name and address and 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name's Fred Hauptman, 5075 West Alamosa Street. And my question is on-site drainage. Where's the water going? It isn't,
Okay.
I didn't see it anywhere.
Okay. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. All right. Anybody else who wishes to testify? Anybody else online? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go back to the applicant, Mr. Simple.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, again, Ben Semple with Rodney Evans and Partners, 1450 West Bannock Street, Boise. Yeah, just to address some of the comments and questions. My client was required to dedicate 10.5 feet of right-of-way along the frontage of Pierce Park to align with a subdivision that was approved a couple of years ago, just north of there. It was the same dedication that was required. The project across Pierce Park, actually, I helped that person do that project as well. They dedicated about the same amount of right-of-way. The 20-foot landscape buffer is a common lot that will still be privately held and maintained by the HOA. So it's not an additional right-of-way. There is an easement that encumbers a portion of that in order to have the sidewalk, the ACHD sidewalk fully within an easement. We will be installing 6-foot privacy fence along the north side, even though it's not required. My client wants to do that. That was in response to the neighbors' concerns about privacy. I think a combination between that fence, the landscaping treatment within the north side, as well as the landscape buffer along the south side, there'll be some substantial landscaping in there. Stormwater will be handled through surface and subsurface infiltration. We have an area that is off of the south side of the Hammerhead turnaround there. It's a pretty large landscaped area, intending to run some of the drainage there. And then we may have to put some underground depending on, we've got geotech, so we know where the groundwater is, we know infiltration rates. So Civil's working on the updated design right now. And I'd stand for any additional questions if you have any.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Simple.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the public hearing. And the item is now before the commission. We have 2 specific items. We have a variance request to deviate from the streetscape and access and connectivity standards and a preliminary plat for the residential subdivision. So we are approving body on one and recommending body on the other.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Schaefer.
I move we recommend approval of SUB 24-39 and approve CVA 24-40 with all the terms and conditions as written in the staff report.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Schaefer to approve the variance and recommend approval for the preliminary plat. Is there a second?
Second.
So I have a second by Commissioner Steha. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Schaefer.
I'll be brief. Thanks to the applicant and for the submission. It's pretty straightforward. We're meeting the zone. Lot sizes all look good. The variance in this case makes a lot of sense to me. It is an unusual circumstance in that we have a shared drive just north of the property line, as I stated in my questioning, and then another shared drive. But certainly no need for that sidewalk on the north side of the shared drive here in this instance, in my opinion. So I'm okay with variance. And then again, the subdivision itself, I think this is a nice infill project. You know, you've got some underutilized ground to the back of the existing lot. So it makes all sense in the world to me to see some more infill in this area. And I think they've appropriately planned for the privacy with the fencing and whatnot. And then again, the parcels meet the zone requirements. So I have no concerns in that regard. Appreciate the input and questioning from our guests here tonight. I sympathize on the sidewalk situation and the right of way. Preaching to the choir there. The thought process here is that we get sidewalks, we get them in place so that eventually we'll have sidewalks everywhere throughout the city. We live in an era now where detached sidewalks are sort of the accepted norm. And so I understand sort of the frustration with attached in some places and detached in others, but we live in a growing, changing city, and that's sort of the condition that we're left with. The end goal, though, is more sidewalks and more pedestrian connectivity throughout the city, and that's what this project's achieving with their proposal here. So again, I sympathize, but I'd like to proceed with it as designed.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Any other discussion? None? Okay, I'm going to be real quick. Last week, I happened to be on a project in planning work in Texas. And this is a community I was working in where there's really are no mechanisms to build sidewalks. And man, it's a shame because they are at their wits' end trying to figure this out. I'm in this application reminds me of, frankly, kind of grateful that we are getting these done, even though it's slow and I understand the inconsistencies that may happen with it, but we have a mechanism and I'm very happy that it's occurring. Pretty much every meeting we have more and more, sidewalk network getting built. And I'm very happy and grateful that it's happening as we are becoming a more urbanized community. So echo Commissioner Schaefer's sentiments. Last comments, none? Okay, will the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
Danley,
All right,
Moore, oops, absent, sorry. Schaefer.
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Horace,
Aye.
Stone,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
excellent. Okay, I'm going to use a little discretion. I think we should just take a quick 5. I know this next item is going to be a minute, and so I'd like to just take a quick 5-minute break. We'll come back. It's the last item of the night. Oh, it's not.
We got one more.
Sorry, I'm ahead of myself. Wake up, Chris. We won't take a break. We'll move forward. My fault. Just testing. Okay, all right, we're good. All right, never mind. Belay my last. Item number 4, CBA 24-26 Centurion Engineers, another variance request at 7729 West Settlers Avenue, and SUB 24-9 Tranquility Subdivision, also located at the same address, which is a preliminary plat. And it looks like, go ahead and take it away, Ms. Lyle.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The item before you, as you said, is SUB 24-9 and CBA 24-26. It's a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 7 buildable and 3 common lots on 0.93 acres, located at 7729 West Settlers Avenue in an R1C zone. And as you said, this also has a variance to deviate from the access and connectivity standards, as well as the parking and loading requirements. And as outlined in the project report, all the lots within Tranquility Subdivision do meet the dimensional standards of the R1C zone. Frontage is provided to all the new lots by a proposed private street on the west side of the property, and the existing home will maintain access and frontage from Settlers Avenue. The applicant is proposing to provide a 5-foot wide attached sidewalk along Settlers Avenue to be consistent with the existing sidewalk on either side of the property. And the planning director has granted a waiver for this request, as installing detached sidewalk would require the removal of the existing home. The proposed private street provides detached sidewalk on the eastern side of the road adjacent to the proposed new lots. However, the applicant has submitted a variance to waive the sidewalk on the west side of the private street. Planning staff has found a hardship with the property in that there is no possibility for future extension of the private street. There is limited width on the parcel to install full street improvements without creating a non-conforming setback adjacent to the existing home. Additionally, the applicant is providing the detached sidewalk on the east side of the private road, which provides a safe path for future pedestrians within the subdivision to get out to the Settlers Avenue right away. The applicant has also submitted a variance request to reduce the parking setback on the western side of Lot 1 from 5 feet to 4. The planning team is not supportive of this variance request, however, as there is 16 feet between the property line and the single-family home, which can accommodate the 5-foot setback, a minimum of a 9-foot driveway, and still maintain 2 feet from the home. A condition of approval will require the applicant to provide the minimum of 1 paved parking space and meet all the setbacks of the R1C zone. 2 public comments were received with requests for additional landscaping on the western side of the property and the installation of a privacy fence around the perimeter of the subdivision. Other concerns were raised about the height of the new homes and construction hours and duration. Any development on the proposed lots must follow all code requirements, including height limits and construction hours. And the development code does not dictate construction duration, as there are many variables during the construction process that can impact timelines. As detailed in the project report, the planning team finds that this application is consistent with the approval criteria for the subdivision and the variance request to waive the sidewalk requirements on the west side of the private road. However, the planning team does not find the proposal meets the requirement for a variance request to reduce the parking setback on Lot 1 and recommends denial for that particular variance. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Jesse. Is the applicant present? I think it's Zach Nichols. Go ahead and come on up. And same thing, if you wouldn't mind, your name, official address, and 10 minutes, is that okay?
Perfect. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is David Crawford. I'm with Centurion Engineers. Zach is also here tonight listening in. We're here representing the applicant or the owner, developer of the property with this infill development of 10 lots and 6 new buildable lots. There's an existing home proposed, as noted, was proposed on the first lot within the development. And I just wanted to thank Boise City staff, particularly Jesse, with their thoughtful review and comments that were placed on and the conditions as they were placed on here. We basically are in an infill development, which is pretty obvious, and we're doing the private street. Boise City Code normally requires sidewalk detached on both sides. In this particular instance, it would reduce the setback from the existing home to the street, just as Jesse noted. And it creates a really large corridor and really impedes building on the remaining lots. So with that, we felt that it was appropriate to ask for that variance. The administration, as noted, did grant us a waiver from the detached walk, again, on the north side of the property due to the proximity of the existing home. We're showing that the lots are all sized appropriately for the underlying zone. And we did initially have a request for the parking setback on the existing lot. But after we got through with the staff's review, we certainly noted that we could accommodate the parking as noted and no longer requesting that, or we agree with all the conditions of approval as written. We believe we're going to provide a great project infill development for the city of Boise to bring much needed inventory for single family homes in the area. We did receive the late letters of comments from the neighbors and have gone out there and looked at a couple of their concerns. There's a one letter from a property owner in the northwest. The project developers went out and looked at it today, and they did note that the fence was kind of new, but there was a bad fence corner that where it transitioned from an existing vinyl fence to a different fence, and they said that they would fix that for her. The property owner to the south has an existing two-story home with a chain link fence that's in really good repair. Obviously, chain link fencing lasts a really long time. Throwing things out that are perfectly good seemed to be a bad throwing good money after bad, so to speak. So they did offer to work with the homeowner to install chain link fencing. Construction hours are pretty well restricted within the city of Boise between certain hours, so we're more than happy to comply with that. There won't be any after hours or before hours of construction. Duration is always subject to material supplies and labor. Obviously, it's in our best interest and the developer's best interest to get this done as fast as humanly possible, so that he's not wasting his money in there. So we don't know exactly the time frame it would take, but we'd certainly do it with all expediency. So based on that, I certainly stand for any questions you have.
Excellent. Is there anybody else on your team that you wanted to speak tonight?
Not tonight, no.
Okay, if that's the case, and if you're wrapped up, we'll hold tight. And I'm gonna just need to check real quick if there's anybody from the neighborhood association who wishes to testify. In this case, is the West Bench neighborhood and Jonathan Melby in chambers or online. We're 0 for 2. Says expected. Okay,
Mr. Chair, that says expected for public.
it does. I'm flustered tonight. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, in that case, we'll go ahead and turn it over to questions from the commission. So we might have you come back up in just a moment. Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Schaefer.
just do a little housekeeping here. Jesse, it sounds like if I understand the applicant correctly, the variance may not be in play any longer. Is that your understanding? The variance request?
Mr. Chair, Commission, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, so I don't know procedurally.
So it sounds like to me the best course here would be just to deny the variance and tie up that loose end, right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that sounds correct. And then there is that condition of approval that requires them to meet all the parking setbacks
Okay.
included.
And that's in the packet already.
Correct.
Standard. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Mooney, I'm kind of thought you'd be asking some questions on this one. No? Last one from Arizona.
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, if there are no additional questions, then we'll go ahead and open this up to the public. Okay. First up is Lauren. Is it Shilly? Great. If you wouldn't mind, come on up. Just state your name and your address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys so much. I'm Lauren Shilly. I live at 2641 North Westland Place. We are that two-story house on the south side. Our entire property line does run the length of this project. I would like to start off by saying no one has come to talk to us about the fence situation. I don't know what that was about, but that is one of our major concerns in this project. Having a road drive directly into our house means headlights. It means a lot of issues for us as current homeowners. Our back patio is about 15 feet from our back property line, and then we have 15 feet for the next house. Having a road, having noise, having construction, this is going to be very difficult. We respect and understand Boise needs more housing. That is not what we're here to come and say, don't accept a housing development here, but there definitely needs to be consideration for people who do currently live here, and a privacy fence for us is really important in having this project move forward. And right now, our actual chain link fence has a gate in it that leads to this property. And that's also a huge safety concern for us, as we do have pets and animals and dogs. Just 1 second. On top of that, we have a major concern about how many single family homes they're trying to put on. as just testified in the previous agenda item, they're fitting 5 homes on a much larger piece of land compared to 7 on a much smaller piece of land. So that also is very disjointed with what the current neighborhood looks like. Usually it was about 3 to 4 houses on that same property land. So we're, again, not asking that they don't build, but they adjust to have it be 4 or 5 townhomes instead of the full 7. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you coming out. Next up, I think it's Mike. Is it Hammond? Oh, Holman. Okay, thank you, Mike. If you wouldn't mind, state your name and your address for the record.
Yes,
3 minutes.
Mike Holman, 6820 West Randolph Drive, Boise, Idaho. I'm the developer and the gentleman or the
Mr.
lady
Chair.
was just
I was gonna say, can you come up a little bit closer to
Okay.
that mic? There we go.
Okay. The lady that was just up, we went out and looked at her fence today. It's a chain link fence, but you can see through it. So we're gonna propose on our ticket to put the privacy slats in for her. On that. And let's see. There was another lady that wrote a letter about her fence leaning over, and we went out there and there's a bad post and we'd fix that. It's on the entry to the subdivision on the right.
Okay.
And that's all I had to add unless there's any questions for me.
Okay, I think we're okay. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Appreciate you coming out. Is there anybody else? Let's see, I don't have anybody on Zoom that's wanting to testify. Is there anybody in the chambers who wants to testify on this that has not signed up? Okay. Oh, yeah, please come on up. I just need your name and address and 3 minutes. Maybe pull the mic down just a little bit. That'd be great.
Rhonda Newsome. I live at 2708 North Rosedale Place. My property is along the street side where they're going to build. That fence has been up there for, well, beyond 21 years because that property's been owned for that neighbor who owned it prior. And there should be a privacy fence because I have animals. I don't want to be looking at cars coming in and out. There's no sidewalk, it sounds like, along my side, just a curb and some area they're going to plant something or something. But to have our privacy taken away from us just because some developer wants to come in there and put 6 2-story properties, they won't be exactly against my property, but they will be on the other side. But I cannot understand why they would not put a privacy fence all the way around where the cyclone fence. That cyclone fence has been up there for over 21 years. I've been there 21 years. It is not in good shape. I also have the water containment concrete thing on my property too. And I'm wondering about, are they going to be ripping out the water where you get your irrigation? Are they going to, just very disturbing that they can just come in and make it, not look good for us or protect us when we've been there for so long to build up these, 2-story houses. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else in chambers who go ahead, come on up? Same thing, if you would, name and address.
Hi, my name's Christy Randolph. I live at 2717 North Westland Place. A little unprepared to speak today, so I apologize, but I do have concerns about the water. I too have one of those irrigation concrete cement things in my backyard, as well as I am concerned about how long the construction is going to take. It looks like, based on the map that I had just seen, that multiple of the backyards of those homes that are proposed being built will be facing my backyard as well. So I'd like to get some sort of privacy fence as well. I have not had anybody come talk to me about anything whatsoever. So I guess I'm just sort of new and trying to gain some knowledge as we go along, but I do have a lot of concerns. And so I'm just here to kind of gain some knowledge now. And I guess I'll be doing a little more research, and maybe I'm a little too late in the game, but here I am. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out. Okay. Anyone else? Nobody else online? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and draw the public portion to a close. And if we can have the applicant, it's up to you, but you're welcome to come back up and you have 5 minutes for any rebuttal that you'd like to offer.
Chairman, Commissioners, David Crawford, 2323 South Vista Avenue in Boise, Centurion Engineers. There was a number of things brought up, obviously, with privacy fencing, and I think I previously indicated, along with the developer, that we would definitely work with them to increase the slats within the existing chain link fences. There was a concern that was brought up about densities in the area. Well, with the new zoning code, the densities were certainly increased in what was previously, 5,000 square foot lots are no longer that. So that does afford for more homes to be a better, higher use of the land. We don't believe we're proposing anything that others in the same instance or same development strategy wouldn't do. We're not asking anything unique with code. We certainly, to address the gate and the fence, I don't know exactly how to address that. It's not really our gate to do things with, but we could certainly work with them if they, to ensure the gate is locked or something. We can do that. Surface irrigation water rights are always an issue with conveyances going through properties. We definitely have planned on the preliminary plat. We've showed where we're bringing the water to and through the property is required by Idaho code, so that irrigation is not interrupted and it's going from its intake points to its discharge points. So I believe we've accommodated for that. Also, I don't think on our preliminary plat is shown, but we are retaining stormwater on site. We anticipate it to be with subsurface infiltration facilities. And that's a standard of practice. Again, we believe that this preliminary plat, along with the two variances that we, or what the one variance we need, is consistent with Boise City Code, and we believe we got a great product here. It does change the neighborhood, and that's kind of how infill developments work. So I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, with that, the item is before the commission. So we have two items, CVA 24-26, the variance requests, and then SUB 24-9, the preliminary plat.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Seah.
I move that we recommend approval of the preliminary plat to City Council. So that's SUB 24-00009. And on the variance, I move that we deny the variance request, CVA 24-26, from the access and connectivity and parking and loading requirements.
Okay,
I hope I said that right.
I think so. We'll get it figured out. I've got a motion by Commissioner Seah for approval of the preliminary plat and a denial, recommendation for approval for the preliminary plat and a denial of the variance. Is there a second?
No, I'll second, if anything, just for discussion.
Sure.
I think we got to make sure that we get the variance language correct, Mr. Chair.
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, there are two variances.
Right.
So just wanting to make sure that we're capturing. Okay.
Yep. So I think we need to go back to the motion, Commissioner Seah, to just make sure we clarify the language on the variance component, correct?
Correct. If you want to be the motion to deny both, I would make that clear, or not.
Mr. Chair, I think I might be a little bit confused because when I read the packet, it said that the administrator approved the variance for the sidewalk.
I know. So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Seah, so there's a waiver that the planning director has the ability to waive the requirement for detached sidewalk on local roadways and allow attached. So that's that waiver for settlers. And then there's two variance requests within the, in addition to.
Okay, I'm going to withdraw my original motion
Okay,
and try again.
is that okay with Commissioner Schaefer? You're the
I
second.
accept the withdrawal.
Okay, we're good on that.
Okay.
I'm good.
Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend approval to City Council of SUB 24-9, Tranquility Subdivision Preliminary Plat, and that the commission deny us, well, so there's two variants under CVA 24-26. One is to deviate from the access and connectivity and parking. So the parking requirement we would deny. The sidewalk we are approving.
I will second that motion.
Okay, I think we've got that straight. So I got a motion by Commissioner Seha to recommend approval for the preliminary plat to council, and a second for the same thing for the preliminary plat by Commissioner Schaefer. I have a motion by Commissioner Seha to deny specifically the variance request specific to the parking access component of this application, and a second by Commissioner Schaefer. Are we good on language, staff, and everybody?
And then there's another variance that I believe I heard the motion is to recommend approval or to approve.
To approve the detached.
And the second one, correct. Okay, so for the second variance is to approve that variance for the sidewalk, also seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Good? Okay, is there any discussion?
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
I think it was pretty clear cut.
Mr. Chair,
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Torres?
I just wanted to comment that I'll be supporting the motion. I appreciate the applicant for being willing to work with the neighbors on the fencing and explaining the water situation. I think that's certainly helpful, for the community to understand what's being built here and what they can expect. And like I said, I'll be supporting the motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Torres.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, real quick.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah, I guess we're just real quick. I seconded the motions. I'm in support of the, obviously in support of the project, like the previous application. It's a nice infill project. We do have a little more density these days under the new code, so the lots are a little bit smaller than previously approved around the neighborhood. So that's why we're seeing a few more houses in this particular infill project. Fencing, I know that we have the applicant on record about fencing. I don't know if I just wanted to take the temperature of the commission real quick to see if we wanted to entertain a motion to kind of firm up the approach with the fencing around the perimeter of the site. This does still have to go to city council as a preliminary plat, so it could be taken up at that point, I suppose, in discussion. But I thought I just might throw that out there to the commission before we, send this one up the chain.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mooney?
I'm in support of the motion as well for all the reasons Commissioner Schaefer identified. That it's a great, but I also had the concern about the chain link fencing. What I understood that they would basically put slats in the chain link fencing, and I agree with the 20 we heard from the neighbors and some of the information in our packet that a vinyl fence or a privacy fence limited to 6 feet would appropriate recommendation to city council under the sub.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mooney. So it sounds as though there may be an interest to possibly seek an additional condition of approval or recommended condition of approval for the preliminary plat specific around the fencing. But that's not a motion I'm going to make. So we want to amend again or not. We don't have to.
And yeah, I bring it up as a discussion point. So, Esther is the motioner, I'm open to suggestions or thought. I wanted to get out there.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Schaefer, I am in agreement. I'm not opposed to adding it as a condition. I would say that at this point, at this very moment, if this was to go to city council for approval, never mind. Different one. Okay. Yeah, so I can amend, and I apologize. I have not amended a motion before. So I just request for an amendment to include fencing as a condition with, how detailed do we go into this?
I think if you can address that it's a condition of approval that the applicant essentially work with the neighborhoods and establish a permanent fencing in the, I would imagine, the perimeter of the parcel.
You could appropriate to say privacy, an approach to privacy fencing around the perimeter of the project site.
Okay. So again, Mr. Chairman, when I make the motion to amend, do I go through the two variances? No, I don't.
No,
Okay.
just make the condition of approval amended motion for the preliminary plat.
So I request that we amend the motion to add a condition, an additional condition for approval that would require the applicant to work with the residents on fencing around the perimeter of the development.
Okay. I have an amended motion, or second motion, I guess I should say, specific to the preliminary plat by Commissioner Seha for the condition of approval of the applicant to construct a privacy fence around the perimeter of the property. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
So I have a second by Commissioner Schaefer. Let me handle it this way. Is there any discussion on this particular amended motion first and foremost? Okay, so I think I'm going to handle it this way. Why don't we go ahead and take the roll vote on that? So if we can, I want to make sure we are voting on the amended motion that includes the fencing condition of approval for SUB 24, the preliminary plat. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Danley,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Mooney,
Yes.
Seha,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
Okay, great. Now let's move to the variance, and we have that language already clear. Is there any additional discussion on the specific item regarding the variance?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Just to help clarify the record, we have a partial approval and a partial denial on the variance.
Correct.
The approval is to, like the previous application, not install detached sidewalk on a portion of the drive. In this case, it's on the west side of the drive. I think that's right. And then the denial is the parking setback adjacent to lot 1, which the applicant is actually in agreement with. So it's a bit of housekeeping. I just thought I would get that on the record.
Very much
try and make sure we're clear.
Yep, very appreciated.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no discussion, then go ahead. Let's go ahead and call the roll on that.
Danley,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
Torres,
Aye.
Stone,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
That was about as messy as my 11-year-old room at the end of a weekend. Okay, now we're going to take a break, 5 minutes. We'll get ourselves together and we'll come back and have our final item. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, I think if we can, we have everybody back? Yes. There's John. Okay. Yeah, dapper John tonight. Look at got it back from the cleaners finally, huh? All right. Okay, so the last item of our evening is VOA 25-2. Before we begin this hearing, I want to basically just speak some truths about this application. I want to make sure everybody is clear about all of the details of this from a bigger picture. This is a legislative hearing versus what's called a quasi-judicial, so it's a little bit different in that regard. So as chairman of this commission, I have two main responsibilities according to Robert's rules, who many of you in this room may be familiar with. One is to protect the process and to make sure that we're moving things along that we're legal, lawful, following code, all of that kind of stuff, right? The other one is to take care of everybody, people, yourselves, us, staff, everybody involved. That might mean anything from turning the air conditioning up to some of the things I talked about at the beginning. Somebody wants to make a little bit of noise, what have you. All of that is fair game about taking care of our people, right? So I need to make sure that we're clear on a few things before we get this underway. First and foremost, I don't know if everybody is aware of this. We are citizen volunteers. We were not elected. We do not get paid. I got a bowl of soup for being here this evening, right? That's how we are compensated, is with a meal. But point being, that's our role as citizens. And any of you who are residents can be in this very chair if you follow the process and have a Boise address. Number two, this application that you're about to hear was asked for by council of staff. Okay, that's fact number two. Number three, this body does not approve or deny applications such as zoning request changes. So this body is not able and cannot and will not be doing that. We make recommendations that then go to council. Therefore, number four is that this item will absolutely be in front of council. And the last fact I wanted just to make sure everybody's clear about, we had a lot of letters, like I said, and there were some really good ones that we all, took the time to read. That's our responsibility. Is that yes, there's a little murkiness, I get it, but to clarify, yes, what you're hearing tonight has roots with respect to the shelter in a different application. However, what is in front of us tonight does not have to do specifically with IFF or any other application for that matter. It's specific to the request made by council and being proposed tonight by staff. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands a little bit of the lay of the land before we shove off and have this hearing and get to public testimony. Okay? Okay. With that, we'll go ahead and open this up. And Ms. Turning, go ahead and take it away.
Hello. Hello, commissioners.
Oh, sorry, Deanna.
It's me, right? Commissioners, I'm here today to present COA 25-2, an amendment to the Boise City Code, Common Procedures for Appeals and Specific Procedures for Conditional Use Permits. As the application before you is a zoning ordinance amendment serving as a legislative policy action, the Planning and Zoning Commission is a recommending body, with City Council as the final decision-making authority. The approval criteria for this application is 1, the amendment is required for the public convenience or general welfare, and 2, the amendment is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan. As background for the city-initiated zoning ordinance amendment, City Council at a February 2025 work session directed the planning staff to review and propose amendments to the appeal procedures and standards of a review to address opportunities for code and process improvements identified in the Veterans Park Neighborhood Association for City of Boise, Idaho Supreme Court decision. The amendments before you proposes the following changes. First, we address several inconsistencies and clarify procedural language related to appeals. We then amended the Appeals of Commission Decisions section to more accurately describe the process of appeals for the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Design Review Commission, and the Historic Preservation Commission. The next two describe policy actions informed by the Idaho Supreme Court decision. 1, to refine the arbitrary and capricious standard, and 2, to introduce de novo review for conditional use permits. We amended the arbitrary and capricious standard to align with a more traditional standard. This balances deference that the council must give to a commission decision when we're reviewing an appeal for a P&Z error. Additionally, at the direction of council, we are proposing to introduce de novo review for conditional use permit appeals. This amendment will ensure that City Council has the opportunity to fully re-examine the project, not just review the prior decision. This means that council would consider the application from the beginning. However, it would allow council to consider the Planning and Zoning Commission decision, but the new record allows council to accept new evidence, public testimony, and staff analysis, ask questions and explore topics brought up through the planning and zoning hearing process, apply the approval criteria for conditional use permits, and add conditions to mitigate any negative impacts, all to make the most informed decision possible. With this amendment, council as the elected body will be in the position to have the authority and the accountability to implement citywide goals through land use decisions. Introducing de novo review for appeals of conditional use permits does not grant City Council unlimited discretion. The council will still be held to the rules of the Development Code and the same approval criteria for CUPs as the Planning and Zoning Commission, which includes considering the unique location of the proposed use, addressing public benefit and mitigating negative impacts, evaluating site constraints, ensuring safe mobility options, and not conflicting with the comprehensive plan. Since the submission of the zoning ordinance amendment, we have received significant public comment. Many of the comments exclusively focus on the introduction of the de novo level of review for appeals of conditional use permits. These concerns include belief that Planning and Zoning Commission should be an independent review body, that CUPs require technical expertise, that the amendment may increase the number of appeals, and perception that this is targeted to permit a certain use. While staff acknowledged the concerns brought up by the community, as stated earlier, the introduction of de novo review promotes a thorough review, increases public input, and ultimately holds the elected body accountable to implementing policy goals. As mentioned, the application before the commission is a zoning ordinance amendment with the following approval criteria. Planning staff recommend approval as the amendment improves the review process by granting City Council the necessary review authority to ensure correct code implementation, achieve public benefits, and align development with the city's comprehensive plan. And it creates a predictable development pattern by clarifying decision-making authority. With that, the motion before the commission is a recommendation to City Council.
Okay, thank you, Deanna. Appreciate it. So since the city is essentially the applicant, we're going to move forward to the neighborhood associations, and every neighborhood association in the city of Boise is eligible to speak on this issue for up to, I think is it 10? 10, up to 10. Okay, and so I have a few folks that I believe, oh, actually nobody. There's nobody on our sheet that actually is signed up, but I know I'm definitely come on up. And if you are online, I need you to go ahead and raise your hand if you are specifically speaking and the representative from one of Boise's neighborhood associations. Okay, I think you've been here before.
I have.
All right, great.
And I signed up on a sheet with only 2 names on it, so it might still be outside if you don't have it.
Oh, it's at the bottom here. So you're on the public. Okay, but got it.
That's fine. You're in luck because I prepared for a 3-minute testimony. So thank you for your time today, commissioners. My name is Katie Decker. I am speaking on behalf of the Veterans Park Neighborhood Association, and my address is 5001 West Wymosa Street in Boise, Idaho. VPNA urges you to recommend rejection of the proposed amendments to the Boise zoning code. The proposal to grant City Council de novo review of the conditional use permit conditional use permit appeals represents a fundamental and troubling shift. It removes the requirement for council to find error in planning and zoning decisions and allows them to retry cases from scratch. It disregards your findings and expertise, and it allows for last-minute additions to the record and effectively relitigating the entire issue. If council can simply override your work for political reasons, we will see more legal challenges, not fewer. This opens the development application process to influence from campaign donations. While this proposal has been presented as an attempt to update code to reflect the way that City Council has long interpreted their authority in reviewing appeals of underlying decisions, this is simply not true. Council is aware of their responsibilities under the standard of review and routinely bases their decisions on whether they find error in the underlying body, as we presented examples of in our written comments. Obviously, the timing of this amendment is especially troubling. It comes less than 2 years after Boise completed a multi-year zoning code rewrite, a process aimed at applying one consistent set of rules to all projects, reducing discretionary decisions, and keeping development review professional and predictable. If a shift to de novo review were truly a longstanding policy goal, it would have been part of that public process, not introduced now, just weeks after the Idaho Supreme Court overturned Interfaith Sanctuary's CUP. I will note that that decision did not specifically recommend that city updated their code. It simply based the decision on city code as written. The fact that this proposal was included in the city's press release responding to that ruling makes it difficult to see this as anything other than a reactive attempt to benefit one project. It's not only bad policy, it's illegal. We're also concerned about changes to the arbitrary and capricious standard of review. The proposed red line deletes language that helps clarify what this legal term actually means for local decision makers who may not be fluent in legalese. It's a widely used term dating back to 1946, and sources like the Ninth Circuit's Guide on Standards Review confirm that this is interpreted to mean that decisions must be rational and consider all of the facts and not be made without due consideration. Decisions shall not be made on a whim, preference, or political expediency. It also makes clear that even when multiple interpretations are possible based on the record, overturning a decision requires a clear error in judgment, not simply a disagreement. Striking this explanation as proposed in this code rewrite won't change how the courts apply the law, but it could cause local bodies to misapply the standard, increasing the chance of costly mistakes and litigation. There's no benefit to removing that clarity from the code. In conclusion, we respectfully ask you to reject the proposal to grant de novo review and to retain the full definition of the arbitrary and capricious standard. Let's protect a process based on expertise, fairness, and consistency, not reactive politics. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Katie. Good to see you. Is there anybody else in chambers who is a designated representative from any of Boise's neighborhood associations? Seeing none, I have a hand raised in the chat function, but it's not a name I recognize. I'll ask this person. So Richard Fritzley, are you a representative of one of Boise's neighborhood associations or a citizen at large? Because if you're a citizen at large, you will certainly have your moment to testify momentarily.
Mr. Chair, I have lost my ability to unmute. Just 1 second.
I get accused of that all the time. Shut up, I can't. Okay, we're getting closer.
Go ahead, Richard.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are. Are you, Mr. Fritzley, are you a representative of one of the neighborhood associations, not a HOA, but a neighborhood association?
No, I'm not.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So I'm going to have you just kind of hold tight and we'll certainly get to you momentarily. Okay, is there anybody else in chambers, neighborhood associations? Wow, I'm kind of surprised. Okay. Okay. Well, if there aren't any other neighborhood association members, then we're going to go ahead and turn this over to questions of the commission. And then we'll get into public testimony. Commissioners, any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Mooney.
I'll start for a question for staff. If we could go back to the slide before the recommendations and reference that. For our recommendation to City Council on this particular zoning amendment, provide City Council the necessary review authority to ensure correct code interpretation. So the question is, isn't that effectively the City Council saying there was an error made? And I guess this is concerning to me, is that is there an error there, or do we have to have this whole new process? Question for staff.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, can you restate your question, please?
Yeah, it's kind of obtuse, obviously. I'm sorry, I'm confused. So your green text there is basically your justification for why this is required. And it seems to me you're saying that it's required so that city council can ensure correct code interpretation, which in the case of an application that comes before planning and zoning that's approved or denied and then appealed, then city council is basically current process without de novo review is basically supposed to say, did the commission correctly interpret the code? So I'm struggling with why we need a whole new process when that's currently the process.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, I understand the question. I can see how the sentence is written. You could believe that this is actually encompassing all of the edits, which some of them were the incorrect code interpretation, which is the inconsistencies that we addressed with some just cleanup of the code language, as well as clarifying the process that Design Review Commission, Historic Preservation Commission, and am I forgetting one? Planning and Zoning Commission all appeal to City Council. So this is speaking to all 4 of these bullet points, and that's the correct code interpretation. So if you see in the red lines, Design Review Commission and Historic Preservation Commission were added in that one section.
Okay, great. Mr. Chair, follow?
Go ahead.
Question for staff regarding, so why not just make this commission or any city commission a recommending body versus a final approval body that then is subject to appeal at council? Why change it? Why not do that rather than this de novo review?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, there's many ways to amend the code. There's lots of ways to address different ways to have done this. And this was the direction that council asked us to look at specifically the appeal procedures.
Mr. Chair, last follow-up.
Commissioner Mooney.
Do we have examples of other jurisdictions across the state, obviously under LUPA, that the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a final decision on a permit, conditional use permit, or are they normally a recommending body?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, I don't have like specific cities in mind. I know that in my experience, conditional use permits usually are approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, but I can't speak to every city in the state.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, last follow-up.
Nope, that's it. You already said it. Go ahead.
For staff again, actually, let me think on that. That's it for now. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right. While Commissioner Mooney thinks, are there other questions among the commission?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Torres.
my question is, there were a lot of comments in the public record about concerns about, how do I want to put this? I'm not going to take the position that much of the testimony had that this was corruption or anything like that. But obviously there are concerns among the public about the appearance of corruption or politics coming into play in this. Can you address, that's a very broad question there, but can you address, I guess, why this commission and also city council, if they choose to approve this, depending on, regardless of what our recommendation is, why that shouldn't be a concern?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Torres, I think the Idaho Supreme Court case decision did prompt us and gave us the opportunity to look within, while it was based off of the previous code, it gave us the opportunity to look at the appeal procedures for our current code. And I think that did happen, and we did look through it, and we were directed by city council to evaluate and address the policy decisions that were brought forward by the Supreme Court decision. And as it is a legislative action, the city council is permitted to make legislative policy. And so they directed staff to begin that process to amend the code.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Seha.
I have a related question. So the city council directed planning staff to look at some policy around this and evaluate like what we consider. Was there any consideration on moving to a board of adjustment?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Seha, not through this process, we did not look at creating a board of adjustments. I believe that the desire to have a de novo review, so to allow a new record to be created to increase public input, allow questioning of the planning and zoning record, as well as then to bring it to the elected body to be held accountable was the policy directive that was given to us. While a board of adjustments would operate in a quasi-judicial fashion, which is opposite from the de novo review that was asked.
One more question, Mr. Chairman. I always like to look and see what other states, I know, every state may have some slight tweaks, but are you familiar with any other city councils, not just in Idaho, but outside of Idaho that have de novo review?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Seha, it is a common type of review, as well as though an error standard too. It's two different ways to take review, and sometimes therefore different types of applications, ones that have a certain technical skill, some that have more nuanced policy questions that come from that land use decision.
Mr. Chairman, I thought of another question.
Commissioner Torres.
Deanna, can you address also, there were many comments about how with the modern zoning code, we were trying to streamline the process so that projects could get started faster. We did that through things like the hearings examiner for certain projects. And there's other things in the code that I won't go into detail about. But obviously, since we're not a recommending body under this change, not every single planning and zoning conditional use permit would go to city council, but a lot of them a lot more potentially could. There's a new record, obviously, if they do hold a de novo review of the CUP. I guess is there a concern by city council that this could just cause things to grind to a halt or slow things down? As it is, there's a delay already with our current process and things between when they're submitted, when they're reviewed by staff, when they get to us, and then when they get on the city council calendar if they're appealed. Can you address that at all?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Torres, that's a good question. One that I know one of the goals of the modern zoning code was to ensure that the type of development has the right level of review. And so we have gone through our code and made many things administrative and are approved administratively. And if those administrative applications do get appealed, they do go to the hearing examiner, which is a quasi-judicial review. So that would stay the same. But for applications, and this is a conversation we had with the community, for applications that had many different nuances to them, many different sides and ways to look at it, such as a conditional use permit, those needed a higher level body of review. And so that would continue to be the case. And we are not parties of records, and those entitled to receive mail notice will continue to have the ability to do an appeal, just as they do now. That it won't change. And we'll continue to look if this moves forward, this proposal, we'll continue to see how that impacts the likelihood of appeals.
Deanna, if you could, I want to ask a question, and that is, we had lots of letters that gave a lot of flattery to us as experts and in the land use realm. And I know that there's obviously a lot of variability within this commission and the other bodies that are representative from citizen from the residents of Boise. So I'm just curious, can you walk through a little bit about the general process of how the city approaches filling a vacancy, in this case specifically on Planning and Zoning Commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair, good question. So as you said at the beginning of the hearing, a planning and zoning commissioner is an appointed member, and they express interest in being on the board through an application. And there's very specific timelines and whatnot to be serving on the board. But typically we open it to kind of any person with some experience in land use planning and or kind of lived experience, whether they've been advocates for their neighborhood association or architects, people who work within planning. And all of those applications are reviewed by staff and the mayor, and she would make an appointment, and that's approved by city council.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Here we go with him again. Oh, I mean, Commissioner Mooney, go ahead, sir.
Follow up for staff on Commissioner Torres' question about process and trying to streamline it and the intent of the modern zoning code. I'm hoping you can explain if the city's position on what's a more efficient process. It appears obviously based on the application that the city's position is that a conditional use permit that is denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission or approved, but then it's appealed to city council, rather than city council then just upholding the appeal and sending it back to start all over again with a new application, a de novo review is gonna expand the record and basically burden the council with a lot of from the dais conditions to get the application approved or denied, whatever the means may be. So can you talk through why the city believes that's a more efficient process rather than just taking an application that was denied by the commission, and then turning it around, just saying, hey, start all over and give us a better application. Your application is inadequate based on our code.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, I want to be careful with that, us as staff, that the whole goal is efficiency. I mean, there is a very clear, explicit goal to make sure that the projects that align with the comprehensive plan are at the right level of review. And as I said, more nuanced policy discussions, things that need to be site-based, have the right level of review. So to me, the goal is not necessarily what's the most efficient thing, but the thing that will have the most thorough review. And as you look through a de novo process, is by having the record or continuing an open record at city council, you're allowing additional public comment. You're allowing city council an appeal to ask questions of the applicant again, to ask questions that maybe were touched on at planning zoning and wanted to dig in more, that city council may have some sort of policy expertise, some sort of bigger, far-reaching vision that they want to explore at that appeal process. So for us, it is what can get the most thorough review and also increase transparency while we're doing that.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Sure thing. I'm going to ask one more question. I got to make sure I structure it the right way. Deanna, I'm curious about if there has been any discussion regarding this body and I'm going to use the word motivation on conditional use permits. And what I mean by that is that this is a body who's asked to be prepared, to be thorough, to ask questions, and to give a lot of thought to the potential mitigation that comes along with the CUP, additional conditions of approval. But this process, this appeal, there's already an appeal process, to be clear, but this is opening it to be a bit broader and give council a lot more authority. My concern is that this entity may not be as thorough, because we know that at the end of the day, if anybody wants to appeal, it's going to go up to the next level and the whole thing starts over and is expanded. And our efforts, how much attention is actually going to be paid attention to what we're doing here? And going back to what I said at the beginning, as chair and a responsibility for the process and taking care of, in this instance, the commissioners, how do we feel about that? How should we feel about that?
Mr. Chair, that's a tricky question to answer. I do not think that this is a this is not, this appeal process does not undermine the expertise of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the very thoughtfulness that as commissioners you bring. I think it is to recognize that there are some land use decisions that are complex and that as a community may warrant additional review.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Add an appeal.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Doan.
I want to go to the arbitrary and capricious standard. Can you just talk a little bit more about what's changing in the code that clarifies it?
Yes. So I think I have that page. I'm just gonna take this one. So within it is a refinement, I would say, and this was something that was brought up through the Idaho Supreme Court decision that our arbitrary and capricious standard as Veterans Park Neighborhood Association put on. What we're doing is striking the last, I think it's one sentence of that standard. So if in your project report, it starts at line 187. And so we are striking the qualifier that is this is what our understanding from the Idaho Supreme Court decision, which spelled out that this is an unusually high bar to meet for an arbitrary capricious standard. And instead, as what's shown on the screen, this is a more standard or traditional arbitrary and capricious standard.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mooney, go ahead.
So based on that, the arbitrary capricious, some of our written testimony defined that as surplus language. Can you talk to us about the late correspondence and what's the city's position on the late correspondence you received from Mr. Wardle regarding the surplus language?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, our understanding of that late correspondence is actually they would want us to remove even more from this arbitrary and capricious standard. However, when we talked as a team, we feel that actually leaving the remaining on actually provides kind of more context for an applicant, a member of the public to define more clearly what arbitrary and capricious is. So we feel that we're getting at the same thing and feel that the additional language provides a little bit more context.
Mr. Chair, follow.
Go ahead, Commissioner
Mooney. For staff again, the back to process question. If we get an application that's as we deem inadequate and then it's appealed, on the way to City Council, does the applicant get the opportunity to change their application, or is it still the substandard application that we deny?
Conferred. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, it would be the same application. However, because the record's open, questions could be asked, additional information could be given, but it is the same application.
So is it the city's position then that the staff and the council from the dais is going to come up with a better application than the applicant just starting from square one again?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, is it staff's, can you repeat your question one more time? I'm trying to get all the right players correct in my head.
Sure. So if the application isn't changed, then the only way for it to improve is for the staff to write in the project word additional conditions that council considers, and then that council possibly adds additional conditions after hearing testimony. And is it the city's position, staff's position, that that's a better process than just telling the applicant, your application substandard, just start all over. You've heard what we think about it, come back with a better application.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, that process is what the de novo review would allow.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Sehow.
Follow up on that. So the process that Commissioner Mooney identified, de novo review would allow that. So like I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking of like a very old Plano subdivision that came before planning and zoning. And then it was appealed, if I remember correctly, this was well over a decade ago, was appealed to city council. And I believe city council said, go back to the drawing board.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sehat, and that can happen. And they're allowed, if it were if that was a CUP. So I'm not sure if it's if it's BUB to CUP, but city council has the same authority as planning and zoning if it is an appeal of a CUP and we pass the de novo review. So they would have the same authority. So they could add conditions. They could uphold the appeal, meaning they could agree with what planning and zoning did, or they could overturn it.
Deanna, I'm gonna ask one last question. When we have about, I don't know, 1 or 2 times a year, we have a pretty significant application in front of us, I would think, on average. My question is the thought on if we had a CUP and it's of complexity, given the changes of this, and usually when we have an application that is of significance, it's likely going to be appealed by somebody. My question, I guess, in thinking about how we are going to be viewed by the applicant in the sense of how thorough is the expectation that we be with them, right? Or knowing the chances are it's going to go to council. So if, you know, the expectation that we do our best to be what I believe we're to be, a bit of a buffer, if you will, and trying to make the application as good as possible before it goes to final decision, or in this instance, appeal. I'm just thinking out loud a bit and curious if there's been any discussion about how a prevailing attitude might be amongst applicants to this body.
Mr. Chair, again, we are responding to the desire to provide the additional open record and to create an opportunity for the elected body to be accountable to those complex land use decisions.
Okay.
Did Andrew, you wanted to add?
Good evening, commissioners. For the record, Andrea Tuning with Planning and Development Services. I think it's really important to remember that we are all utilizing the same code. So no matter who is the deciding factor, whether that is an administrative decision, a planning and zoning decision, or a city council decision, we're all using the same code. And it's also important to recognize that as applications go through their process, if something is not complete, they certainly have the opportunity to remand that back to you or remand that back to staff to get those additional information. But I think as a planning and zoning commissioner, I would really put my best step forward because you are those experts in this particular land use segment, and they are going to review that piece of the record, and they are going to lend an ear to that you really have thought about these things. You've thought about the mitigation, but the de novo hearing does allow them to add to the record in case there is something that may have been missed or they wanted to take it a different route. So just really relying on that we all have the same playing rules. Those rules will not change no matter who is reviewing or making that decision.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Andrea. Any other final questions? Okay. Oh, you're going to have lots of opportunities momentarily. When it comes time for the public testimony portion, that's definitely the best time to ask a question. And then in this instance, the city themselves is the application. So there will be a rebuttal portion. This is kind of where it gets a little weird, I know, but that will be transpiring here shortly. So hold tight. Okay. I'm going to take the temperature, y'all, because we have about 25 or so people signed up. And if you multiply that by roughly 3 minutes, you can do the math. So do we need to go to the restroom? Water? We good? Feeling. Okay. All right. Man, y'all are good on road trips too. Okay, well, we don't have any other additional questions, then we're going to go ahead and turn this over to the public testimony. So there are a number of you all who have signed up. And so what I'm going to do is I'll read off 2 or 3 names at a time. So the first name will be the person that would like to come up to the podium, and reminder to please state your name and your address for the record, and also adjust that mic as you need. The second name I'll call, please just make your way up to the front row so that we're ready and we can just continue to move along. And if you don't want to testify, or as we make our way through this, you feel as though, you know what, my point has been made, I don't need to testify and say it again, that's fine too. You can just say pass. And then also for the folks that are on Zoom, just also a quick reminder, everybody has automatically been muted and cannot speak. And so as you're interested in this item, as it comes for discussion, you will be called upon and unmuted. And reminder, there's a chat function in Zoom. And so but it's not a part of the public record. So if you're using it, it's only for any kind of technical difficulties. And again, if you're online, you can raise your hand, your emoji hand, and we will get to you after we get through the in-person testimony. Okay? Okay, with that, let's go ahead and kick this off. So Gary Zimmerman, followed by Mark Montoya, and then followed by Jason, I think it's Seitz or Kreitz, something, one of those.
Hello. Thank you, commissioners. My name is Gary Zimmerman, and I live on Plum Street in Boise. I strongly oppose the proposed zoning amendment that would grant the city on appeal authority to essentially disregard this commission's decisions on conditional use permits. This amendment sends a clear and damaging message to the residents of Boise. By seeking to change the rules immediately after the Supreme Court upheld your well-reasoned decision on the Interfaith Sanctuary Cup and the unmitigable harm that it would cause the surrounding neighborhood, the mayor and council are signaling 2 dangerous things. 1, that the voices and concerns of Boise residents do not truly matter. This amendment suggests that if political will exists, the rules can be changed to achieve a desired outcome, regardless of impact on neighborhoods and the community. And 2, that special privileges to private businesses will be prioritized over the residents' voices and due process. This proposed change appears to be a direct attempt to facilitate the approval of a specific project that this commission rightly determined would cause unmitigable harm. The city's claim that the change promotes transparency and accountability is disingenuous. Residents already can and do hold the city accountable for decisions of its appointed commissions. And whether that's through, appeals, legal, and even the electoral process as new openings come up. This amendment instead introduces the potential for politically motivated overrides, thereby diminishing transparency and making it more difficult for residents to understand and influence land use decisions that directly affect their lives. And the limited scope of this amendment, applying only to cups decided by this commission and not to other appointed commissions and other permits, such as major PUD mods, further reinforces the notion that it's a targeted measure. The stated rationale of increased transparency and accountability rings hollow. True transparency lies in listening to residents, adhering to established processes, and respecting the expertise of appointed bodies like yours. This change instead centralizes power and risks decisions being driven by political agendas rather than sound planning principles. This amendment is not about improving the zoning code. It's about circumventing a decision you made based on your expertise and the concerns of the community. I urge you to protect the integrity of the planning process and the trust of Boise residents by recommending against ZOA 25-2. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zimmerman. Appreciate those great words. Okay. Next up, Mark Montoya, followed by Jason Seitz. And then I think I don't know the first name on the last one here is E. I think it's Dandy. I think. Mark.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come up and talk. I kind of agree with Gary on all the points he made. He did a very good job. I guess what I would say is that whenever a family or a business person or anybody makes an investment in real estate in Boise, that's probably, for a family, certainly one of the biggest investments they'll ever make, if not the biggest. And when they make that investment, they look around themselves where they're going to purchase and they say, what is the character of this neighborhood? Does it fit in with what I want for my family, my business? What is the character of this neighborhood? And is it likely to stay that way? Now, the code will give you some assurance that it's going to maintain some level of constant condition. When you come to looking at a conditional use permit, okay, now we're outside of what we expected was going to be provided for us by the code. So the process of having the Planning and Zoning Commission look at these conditional use permits and deciding how is this going to affect the character of the neighborhood, you are the technical experts. You do the research, you talk to people, and you know you're on top of what's happening around the country whenever these types of changes are made. So your decision has a lot of weight, and it's something that families and business people and other folks rely on to maintain what they thought they were investing in when they made the investment. So I would just, excuse me, please reject this change. That would be my encouragement, to just keep things the way they've been. It's been working very well. It's protected residents, business people. It's protected their investment, and it's met their expectations. And I think we should not change it.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, his address.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good catch.
My name is Mark Montoya, and I'm at 2929 North Innis Street. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Torres. Okay, Jason, I think it's Seitz, and E, I think it's Dandy, followed by C, Seward.
Thank you.
Are you Jason? Okay, thank you, Jason. Appreciate you coming out. Next up, the last name's, I think it's D-A-N-D-Y. It lives at 2116 North 20th Street. You're going to pass. Okay. Is your first initial E?
It's C.
So is your last name Seward?
No.
You're a C. Okay, that's a C. Got it. Okay. So next up is C. You must be C Seward. Probably not C, but yeah, we get it. And then Gonzalez is the next person, Jay Gonzalez. Okay, same. Yeah, go ahead and just pull it down. It's okay. Name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Connie Seward, 2421 Jaretta, and that's 04. And thank you so much for letting us be part of this process. And I want to let you know before I start that it restored a lot of my faith in the process by listening to your guys' open questions in regards to the proposal and your sincere wanting to get it right. I appreciate that. So I'm here to
Mr. Chair.
speak. Can you hear me or no?
No, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Let's see if I can move it so I can still see what I have here. Is that good?
I can hear you, but I need
Yeah,
hear
if
me?
you could lean in just a little
we
bit
got a
and then
thumbs
we'll
up
be good.
from Greg in the back.
Oh,
So
perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm here
hold
to
on. Can we reset the clock to 3 minutes, please?
Okay. I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposed rewrite of the modern zoning code. The mayor has very publicly framed this rewrite as necessary for supposed instructions from the Supreme Court in regards to the Veterans Park Neighborhood Association's recent victorious court case against City Council's ruling to overturn an educated and well-deliberated planning and zoning decision. The mayor has put forth publicly that by this victorious ruling, the Supreme Court has said that Boise City zoning code is in itself the error and must be amended. The mayor also publicized that by the Supreme Court's ruling, Boise City Council would no longer be able to accept an appeal or overturn a planning and zoning decision. Let's make it abundantly clear. Those false public statements are just that, false. False words intended to muzzle tax-paying constituents into silently relinquishing any vestige of voice in our own neighborhoods. The Supreme Court's finding that the Veterans Park Neighborhood Association's grievances were entirely valid was in no way instructive for Boise City Council to make deleterious amendments to the current zoning code. Citing city code, the Supreme Court verdict clearly indicates that appeals can be accepted and overturned as long as city council finds reasoned error in planning and zoning's decision. And that is how it should be. If city council wishes to have a difference of opinion and overturn an expert planning and zoning ruling, then let it be. But let it be with a well-cited and well-reasoned finding of error. To do any less is to turn Boise City Council into a fiefdom, with planning and zoning as the vassals, granted a position and a bowl of soup in exchange for radical loyalty and service, while we, the constituents, pose as serfs, groveling for grace as we strive to dutifully deliver our ever-increasing taxes in silent submission. The Supreme Court's ruling succinctly stated that City Council acted in an arbitrary and capricious manner against the Veterans Park Neighborhood Association. To vote in favor of this modern code zoning rewrite is to vest Boise City Council with monarchical-like power, thus turning the council into a McClaindom, free to act in an arbitrary and capricious manner against every serf-like citizen in every Boise neighborhood. Thank you for hearing me out.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming out. Okay. Jay Gonzalez, Deborah Frank, and then Paul, I think Guile. So Jay Gonzalez first. You're going to pass. Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay. Deborah Frank. All right. Followed by Paul and then Bobby Atchison.
Hi, I'm Deborah Frank. Thank you for allowing me to be here and stand in front of you,
Thanks for coming.
commissioners. I really appreciate your service. I'm at 2216 North 35th Street, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Mayor McLean's legal counsel intent to rewrite, change ZOA 25-2, the modern zoning code, only weeks after the Idaho Supreme Court ruled against Boise City Council in the Interfaith Sanctuary lawsuit. This proposed rewrite change is so telling. In other words, let's change the law so that we, City Council, can go back, do it again, and this time it'll be legal. This proposed zoning change is strictly political clout, and literally it stinks. It smells of spiteful, power-hungry elected politicians. Planning and Zoning Commission the Planning and Zoning Commission was specifically created as a separate body to insulate development decisions from the political machine. These members of Planning and Zoning are appointed. They aren't receiving political campaign contributions from prospective applicants, as is the City Council and the mayor. Planning and zoning commissioners are appointed based on their professional expertise in various planning and development areas, in which allow them to specialize in assessing the application and the legal code requirements. One of the initial goals of the original modern zone code right was to reduce the load of appeals on zoning issues that were coming into City Council, allowing councils to focus more on broad policies. This proposed rewrite will undo that process, as well as open the city up to more lawsuits. This rewrite is wrong, unfair, self-serving, and corrupt. This proposed rewrite only benefits big bucks developers and special interest projects, such as it is called the bailout of Interfaith Sanctuary. The people of Idaho have their ears and eyes wide open. We see you, we hear you, and we are so disappointed that City Council has chosen and the mayor to change and make what was right wrong. I hope that you reject ZOA 25-2. Let's not change the codes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Frank. Appreciate it. Paul, you're up, followed by Bobby Atchison and then Shane Harris.
My name is Paul Guile. I live at 4717 Willow Lane in Boise. And much of my prepared 2-minute and 50-second remarks have been stated already. But just to reiterate, my neighbors consider this the interfaith get out of jail free card. I know you might not view it that way, but our neighborhood is under attack because of this process. And elected officials are supposed to be the representative of the will of the people. And that's in theory, but not always in practice. If elected officials are allowed to bend or break these rules for favored applicants, those rules will become meaningless, especially for the wealthy, the well-connected, or the applicant whose project greatly serves the city's interests. And that would be interfaith. Important checks and balances are under attack this evening. If you wish to cripple this essential aspect of a functioning democracy, then by all means cede your authority, permanently handing your authority over to the city council that has already proven itself to be some problematic. It looks like here that an applicant would get 2 bites at the apple. He gets a technical bite with planning and zoning. He gets a political bite with the city council. And if I were a developer and I thought my chances were better with city council, I would produce a very poor thing to planning and zoning. And if I thought I had a really good chance at planning and zoning, I still would be unsure with my investors on whether the city really wanted to do this. So I am opposed to this change. I hope you can help the city council retain a little of its respectability in terms of this. And I'm sorry that you cannot stop this. And if you cannot stop this, I think I may have wasted a little of my time this evening, because if the question before the city council in a week is, do you want more power? And does that ease the path for interfaith sanctuary? Then I know what's going to happen there. So again, I absolutely oppose this change. Please just keep some respectability to the place. If you want people to participate in this, you can't do the stuff like this. That is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you being out here tonight. Bobby Atchison, followed by Shane Harris, then David Shirtleff, I think it is.
I'm Bobby Atchison. I live at 3019 North 35th Street. Commissioners, I trust somebody who's sitting in your chairs, who's doing that for a bowl of soup. You're volunteers, but you're not just any volunteers. You're volunteers that have been appointed because you have something to know about planning and about zoning. And so I sat here and I watched, not all of the same of you, but the whole Planning and Zoning Commission think very, very clearly through the interfaith conditional use permit application. Now I hear from the city planners that they need increased public input. Does no one remember the many hours and hours and hours of testimony with 2 rooms full of people who all had something to say and got to say it? Does anybody remember the scope of the transcript that that had to be reviewed through the court system? It was thousands and thousands of pages. I tried to remember or imagine how many pages tall would that have been? And I kind of guessed maybe 10 feet, probably up to here. That wasn't enough. They need more thorough review. They need more transparency than what already happened. And so now what they want to do is they want to eviscerate you. They want to gut you and disrespect you. And that is not right. And I am standing up as a citizen saying, please don't do it. You're in a bad spot. You have to stick up for the good work that you're doing. I don't envy you, but I implore you to be brave enough to say, no, Mayor, the members of this community, they see through you, not only because you've told us that this is happening because of the verdict that came down from the Supreme Court. You don't like that. So I get it. The Supreme Court embarrassed city council and they don't like that. And they're having a little temper tantrum that they want their power back. I think that's the quote that I heard. And I get it. The Interfaith Sanctuary, they've accepted millions of dollars of donations when they knew they were in the court process. I think it's totally, it's my opinion, but they had no right taking people's money who were donating to that. So we see exactly what's going on. Jody Peterson gets on and talks about how the city's got her back and that all we got to do is tweak a few little words because it's not really that big of a deal. All of that is a lie. It is a big deal. And I see it. And I really ask you to do the right thing and stick up for yourself and say no.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Shane Harris, followed by David Shurtiff, Tiffany Cushing behind that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shane Harris. I live at 3019 North 35th Street. I actually work as a handyman currently and have since my arrival back in Boise. But prior to that, I worked as a real estate agent for 16 years in Walla Walla, Washington. One of the things that I have to bring to your attention is the federal laws that prevent steering, block busting, and redlining. All of those three things are happening currently on State Street. You have Valor Point, you have Interfaith Sanctuary, you've got the women and children, and the city, I know, want them out of downtown, all the homeless people. They would love to have them removed and put somewhere out of sight, out of mind. We've already dealt with the safety of these people. 3 people died on State Street last year that were not mentally disabled or handicapped in any way. To keep that in mind. When you look at, I'm trying to find my notes here, but the federal law that was written in 1968, the Fair Housing Act, the city of Boise is willing to break all those 3 federal laws. You have to stand by, vote this down, make sure that they don't have more power, because the city of Boise will end up in a lawsuit of grander proportion than they ever care to when block busting, steering, and redlining are being affected in that neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. Okay, David, followed by Tiffany Cushing, and I can't read the final name on the list, but this person lives at 5075 West Alamosa. So, David.
Thank you. My name is David Shortliff, and I live at 2609 North 36th Street, Mr. Commissioner and Commissioners. Much of what I was going to say has been already said, and some parts of my presentation were in my original letter, so I won't repeat those. I think that it's important to recognize the work that you folks do. And you are volunteers, and that probably gives you more credence than an elected official who's, as a lady said, gets support for running elections and all of those kinds of things. The staff for the city council wrote that the P&Z Commission had acted arbitrarily and capriciously in their findings to deny Interfaith Sanctuary's application. I'm not a lawyer, I'm an architect, and so I had to go to Black's Law Library. Arbitrary suggests a decision or action is based on random choice or personal preference rather than fact. Capricious implies a sudden impulsive action or decision lacking a rational basis. It can indicate the decision maker or makers failed to consider relevant factors, relied on irrelevant factors, or made decisions not supported by the evidence. It was clear to all of us who were testifying the many hearings that your commission held on this issue that there was absolutely nothing arbitrary or capricious in P&Z's considerations and decisions. When the Idaho Supreme Court confirmed P&Z's action, they also said that the city council's actions were arbitrary and capricious. There was a time in Boise's recent past when thoughts and wishes of neighborhoods were given very high priority. And that seldom to be overturned by the city council's agenda. The council won the prominent subdivision case in Northwest Boise when the neighborhood ran out of money to go to a higher court. This council paid no heed to the 4 neighborhoods. Now, we've just been talking about Veterans Park, but there have been 4 neighborhood associations involved in this presentation, and that's Veterans Park, Sunset, Collister, and Northwest. Rather than handed a loss by the Supreme Court, they set out to change the rules and make P&Z less effective and the council more powerful. I'll skip these parts here. I asked my District 16 Senator Ali Rabi to support S 1166, which would require the 300-foot separation between shelters and residences. She said no, that she didn't seem it right for a higher body to strong arm a lower body. I agreed with that concept, except when the lower body is
Sir, I'm going
disregarding
to
its
have to
citizens.
stop. I apologize, but you're over the 3 minutes. That's allotted
Okay.
by code.
Well,
and
that's
I'm
all I
trying
have
be
to say,
fair.
and I just urge you to deny this change.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and coming out tonight, spending it with us. So thank you. Okay, Tiffany, I think it's Cushing? Okay.
My name is Tiffany Cushing, and I live on Willow Lane in Boise. As everyone has noted, we spoke a lot and were not heard very well. I'm here to testify against the zoning code amendment. The Planning and Zoning Commission is made up of people with experience in all of the things that matter when you are developing a city, and was formed to give a thoughtful and factual, thoughtful opinions and based on facts and your personal knowledge. They give the city guidance based on those facts and with the future of the city and its citizens in mind. All of this being done without pet projects or political or financial motivations. The fact that the city is openly attempting a power grab to make their own rules, circumvent the law, and ignore the advice of the commission is blatantly corrupt. The city is acting like a spoiled child who always wants to have their way regardless of the effect on others. It's not disciplined. Where will it end?
Okay, thank you very much for coming out. Appreciate it. Okay, I think it starts with, I think it's an F and last name starts with an H. Was that it? All right, there we go.
Thank you for donating your time, Can't imagine. The word corrupt has come out quite a bit.
Can
City
you
issued
state
a
your
building
name?
permit
Hold on.
for
Can
the
you
homeless
please,
shelter.
hold on, let me pause you for real quick and we can give you 3 minutes. Can you just please real quick start your name and address for the record? Can you please state your name and address officially for the record?
Oh.
Yeah.
My name is Fred Hauptman, 5075 West Alamosa Street.
Perfect, thank you.
Boise. The word corrupt has come up quite a bit. The city issued a building permit for the homeless shelter on State Street with 30 conditional use variances. One is that I pointed out to Councilman Halliburton that there was only 13 parking places for 200 homeless and 60 to 70 workers. Corrupt. Then they issued the permit and started construction knowing it was going through the judicial process.
Yeah.
They lost at the state Supreme Court. That should have made the building permit in non-compliance. But work goes on today.
Sir.
Corrupt.
Sir, can you please address us? That would be appreciated. The staff.
I'm speaking to the city. I'm going to ask them a question.
I understand that, but
they're looking ahead to counsel the traditional way of doing business at the city and dictate from the top down. The next step is a class action lawsuit against the city. I'd like to ask Andrea how do you answer to the
Sir,
word
can you
corruption?
please ask us that question?
Well, I wanted to ask
I
her.
understand that, but the process, the way that it has to work
Okay.
is that you ask us, and if she wants to ask it or answer it in rebuttal, she can do so. But in the meantime,
I'm done there.
okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming out. Okay, let's move to Gretchen Hoyt and Shane Harris after that. Oh, you did. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for your volunteer and listening. That's just a little different planning and zoning than last time I spoke. Gretchen Hoyt, 891 North Lander. Thank you, Commissioner Torres, for your questions, and actually all of you guys. So this is my 3 minutes. And I do have a question, but I don't know how this works. So let's be well, Boise. How many times have I heard that? Mayor McLean ends nearly all of her interactions with us, her constituents, with that phrase. In the beginning of her mayorship, it sounded caring and sincere. These days, all I feel is a deep-seated urge to yell, I am not well at all. Be well seemingly only applies now to a certain element in the city. I understand completely the mayor's need for this planning and zoning rewrite, so close to the recent major overhaul of the city codes. It's an attempt at an end run around the hardworking, intelligent, and invested residents of Boise. Those people, including myself, have spoken with conviction at length with evidence-based practice when placing and running a shelter. We were asked clearly for input and we responded multiple times. Since our responses were not in line with the forces of the mass wealth and the real estate holdings, we are not well, Boise. I am against this rewrite. I stand before you this evening knowing in my heart, and I am upset, that no matter what I say or any evidence that I may present is going to make any difference to City Council. I learned that while being deeply involved as a nurse of over 30 years, working with the low barrier population, presenting evidence based on facts about low barrier sheltering. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. In Mayor McLean's public statement reported in the Boise Dev, she writes, a low barrier shelter like Interfaith Sanctuary is key as we take care of Boiseans and partner to develop housing that's affordable for Boise budgets. The decision from the Supreme Court creates both a challenge and an opportunity in the weeks ahead. The city will address procedural issues that arise from the court's decision. True to the Boise way, we will continue to work in hard partnership to meet the challenges we face. What about this Boisean and the multitudes of other that Mayor McLean has made us feel brushed aside? I have repeated over and over and over in letters, emails, and comments that a low barrier shelter is not the answer. If it were the solution, it would have not faced the amazing opposition that it already has and will surely do so again. We are at a crossroads of an opportunity in this city to build a shelter system that could be the crown jewel of the United States. But you have not educated, Mayor McLean, the residents of this city about what a low barrier shelter is and what it means. I truly believe that if this city understood low barrier sheltering, it would rise up with its enormous wealth and philanthropic thrust and help Interfaith develop a system that would work for all of us, homeless and housed alike. You have put on the blinders of the Capital City Development Corporation, Mayor McLean, and evidently you see no other solution. If Boise City
Okay,
Deputy
ma'am, I'm going to
Chief,
need you to pause.
there's nothing we can't do better.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Genuinely.
Question?
I can't now
Okay.
at this point. I appreciate that, but thank you for coming out. Okay, so that concludes the people. No, I know. Let me finish what I'm going to say here. That concludes the folks who have signed up on the sheet of paper. All I have in front of me is Shane Harrison. Is there another sheet? Yeah, it's okay. We're going to get you. Don't worry about it. But what I need to do first, just real quick, and we'll come back to everybody or anybody who has not testified, promise. I need to go online because I also have now folks who have had their hand up and they're going to testify and then we're going to come back. That's modern world. Is there a sheet that I'm missing up here then? I don't have it. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
At the end of the day, I promise you, you will have the opportunity to testify. It's no different than if you've signed up. Okay. So I'm going to go to Richard. Is it Fritzley? His hand has been up for an hour and a half. It's got to be tired by now. Richard, you're with us?
Yes, I am, if you can hear me.
Okay, we can. Thank you for holding on. Please state your name and address for the record. And like everybody else, you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Richard Fritzley. I live at 3807 North Hawthorne Drive. For those of you who don't know, that's in the Sycamore overlay, which just begins on the north side of Taft Street, adjacent to the Veterans Park neighborhood. It's part of the Collister Neighborhood Association. I've been a regular attending these meetings and testifying against the IFS shelter and the zoning code rewrite, and now find myself once again back asking you to please vote no on moving this zoning amendment forward. By way of background, I'm a professional engineer. I have an MBA in finance, specifically real estate finance. I studied at the Center for Real Estate Studies at Indiana University. I was part of a team that developed the first housing affordability index on a statewide basis back in the 80s. I have managed, planned, or constructed billions, that's with a B, of dollars of infrastructure and projects over 40 plus years in engineering, construction, corporate planning and development, and service in the Navy. I've never seen in my life a project the size of the IFS being put on by an organization of the IFS take the financial risk they are taking by proceeding without having zoning approval for their project. This leads me to conclude only one thing. They know the fix is in. Despite the setback from the Supreme Court, which was right in its findings, the city now is just going to blatantly rewrite the code for one and only one reason, despite the dancing that city staff recently did tonight for us and trying to explain why they're doing this. It is just beyond credibility for the city council and the mayor to do this. They will have no credibility when this is done. I want to talk about dignity for a second. There's dignity for the homeless, but there's dignity for the people that are right adjacent to that to that facility. I've lived next to them now for 30 plus years. That neighborhood is cleaned up a lot. It's still very low income, very modest housings. But I tell you, I'm just a half mile away. I live in what is now $1 million house. I'm very blessed. But if the city attempted to put that in next to a house of my size, they would get shouted down and voted down. In fact, they wouldn't try it. But they don't respect the people that are close. I want to urge you once again, vote no against this. You cannot condition away impacts on this neighborhood, and they deserve the same dignity that anybody else would in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your patience. Is your name Troy? Okay, come on up, Troy. That's my fault. I didn't realize it was on the back of this sheet. You're the only name on this thing, so I just missed it. My fault. Please state your name and your address for the record and go ahead.
All right, sorry about that. It was just after.
It happens. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
My name is Troy Clovis. I live at 4859 Willow Lane. I'm here today to testify against the proposed zoning code amendment. This amendment is both disrespectful and dismissive of a planning and zoning commission that has worked diligently over the years. I believe this is a misguided attempt to exempt some individuals from the city code. Rather than serving the public interest, the change would only serve those with the correct political connections. The city's reason statement explains that this will promote a predictable development pattern. With city council elections every 2 years, new individuals on the council susceptible to political whims, the code and different code interpretations will be susceptible to wild swings depending on election results. Rather than promoting long-term planning goals, this change would only enable short-term political goals. We don't need a new zoning code every 2 years. Boise should not become a city with a zoning code that applies only to some of its residents. If the city wants to proceed in this direction, why not eliminate the code altogether like some of the Texas cities like Houston and have a free-for-all? If it's not going to apply to all of us the same, then why apply to any of us? Thank you for your time. And I appreciate all the work you do.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Clovis. Okay, let's go back to the folks on Zoom. I see Dave. Is it Fuji, I think? Dave, you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you for joining us. If you can, your name and address for the record, and you've got 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Dave Fuji. I live on Silver Lake Lane in Boise. Councilman Bajan is quoted as saying that the P&Z commissioners possess significantly more expertise and spend much more time studying the issues before them than City Council does. And as such, City Council frequently relies on the absence of error in denying projects appealed to council. So I've got some examples from CUPs who appeals were denied in the last couple of years. CUP 2115, Clegg said, as I listened to the testimony, I did not hear anyone suggest that there is an error in that decision, nor could I find one. And with that, I would move to deny the appeal and uphold the decision of the P&Z. Bajent said, I don't see anything that rises to the level of error, so I'll be supporting the motion to deny. And then in CUP 22.7, Bajent said the P&Z reasoning wasn't substantially wrong or in error. CUP 2268, Bajent said all we have to decide, and all we should decide, is whether the Planning and Zoning Commission erred. In CUP 2379, Stead said, I do not find that there was a demonstrated error in the decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Morales said, I do not see error in the finding from our P&Z in this one. Halliburton says, our job here on an appeal is to really look at the standard of reviews for appeals. I don't see how we can overturn an appeal without an error that P&Z made in that meeting. And then just this year, CUP 2411, Halliburton said, I don't see an error that they've made. Instead said, there's no evidence that the commission erred in its decision. I guess in summary, I've got to conclude that the current process is proper. Please don't make the P&Z process sloppy by allowing new matter after the hearing, and don't allow for second guessing P&Z unless an innocent error can be found. Please keep the essence of the rules the way they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuji. Is there anybody else in the Zoom chat or in the Zoom box that'd like to testify? Go ahead and raise your hand. I see Lorraine Fuji, you would be up next. Go ahead and state your name, address for the record, and also 3 minutes. We don't hear you quite yet if you're speaking. I do see that you're unmuted, however, so. Lorraine, can you hear us? We don't hear you. Okay, for the sake of moving this along, this is what I'm going to do, Lorraine. If you can hear me, we'll give you a second to work out your kinks. If you can, just put a note in the chat box when you've got it ready and we'll come back to you. Is there anybody else on the Zoom call that would like to testify? I don't see any other hands up at this point in time. Oh, I do see one now. Okay, Jessica Elkin.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Jessica Elkin. I live at 5000 Wimosa Street in Boise.
Okay,
and
go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you guys again for being here tonight. Like most people have said, we truly do appreciate you guys. I am against the change to the zoning code, and I'd urge city councilors to vote the same. My hesitation with it is that I believe that you guys do review the record really well. You take a lot into consideration, and through your time and through doing all of that, become land use experts. And city council does a lot, but through their time, although some of them were former P&Z members, they aren't looking at land use all of the time. And so by them being able to reopen the record and not find error in planning and zoning's findings, I think that opens up a lot of potential risk to the city's processes. And not only that, but it also just allows for prolonged time. Interfaith has been the topic of most people's testimony today. And I would say that if the record had been that anyone new or otherwise could have testified at city council, had they not testified at planning and zoning, that process may have extended for months longer than what it initially had. And it also just allows for a bunch of just, I guess just nuance. And I think that you guys do a great job at finding with your findings, and then city council is able to review that record. And by introducing all of a bunch of new information, it just could muddy that process going along further and prolong the city's decisions. Interfaith being a great example of that, but also just with other land use stuff, like if someone wanted to change, like the gentleman a few before me said with the Sycamore overlay, like all of that goes into a bunch of different processes. And if that is just able to be changed at a whim of city council, then that introduces a lot of risk, not only to planning and zoning with their decisions, but with city councilors and to Boise residents who will have less and less control and less of a voice over time. Thank you again for your time.
Oh, appreciate you coming out. Thank you, Ms. Elkin. Okay, I see Lorraine Fuji, your hand is up again. Hopefully we've gotten things worked out. Can you hear us? Okay. There we go.
How's that? Can you hear?
Yes, we gotcha.
Yay. Okay, thank you. I apologize for that.
Oh, no worries.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners of the Boise City Planning and Zoning, my name is Lorraine Fuji. I live on Silver Lake Lane in Boise, Idaho. I oppose the watering down of the P&Z Commission's influence with the proposed Boise City Code change outlined in ZOA 25-2. Many of the other speakers tonight so eloquently covered the points I had planned to say, so I won't restate them. But I wanted to say that I greatly appreciate the time, effort, knowledge, diligence, and integrity that the members of the P&Z Commission puts forth in guiding Boise's growth. Being a lifelong volunteer, I know how thankless a volunteer job can be. This modification is nothing but a slap in the face to the P&Z Commission and their efforts. This change strips the P&Z Commission of its responsibility, power, and motivation to do the job. The City Council should know that this type of people management is the fastest way to lose any kind of responsibility and desire to those doing the job. I hope the P&Z Commission knows that the City Council does not speak for all of us. There is a large majority of us who truly appreciate the job that you do. Also, for the record, the thought mentioned earlier tonight that we are all, quote, playing by the same rules, unquote, is bogus because some of the team members have the ability to change the rules when they are behind, as we are currently seeing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorraine. Appreciate it. Okay, Karen, I think it's Scriver, and then we're going to go to Scott Burney.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
It's Karen Scriver, 4035 West Garnet Street in Boise. Commissioners, thank you for hearing me. It is really appalling that the mayor appoints you to the Planning and Zoning Commission because of your excellent expertise and experience, yet now wants to allow the city council to cast your decisions aside because they have some pet project they want done, i.e. the proposed interfaith sanctuary shelter. This proposed code change for CUPs is a bad idea. You have always been the same and check and balance for planning and zoning. This change will negatively water down CUP decisions and further corrupt the process between experts and elected officials. It is wrong to change the rules to fit the city's hidden agendas, specifically the development of the Americana River Street area. Please don't cave to who you may have to answer to. Do the right thing and keep the process in place that has stood the test of time for many, many years until the city became sore losers, and it is now trying the we didn't win, so let's change the rules. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your testimony. Okay, Scott Burney, and if there's anybody else on the Zoom, now's the time to raise your hand.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, my name is Scott Burney. I live at 3905 West Garnet Street, and I oppose this amendment. I just wanted to share more information on the arbitrary and capricious standard. There's a case law that supports the sentence in the city's code that is currently proposed for striking out. The Silva versus City of Columbus Falls case decision stated, and I quote, "An action under the arbitrary and capricious standard does not permit a reversal merely because the record contains inconsistent evidence or evidence which might support a different result. Rather, the decision being challenged must appear to be random, unreasonable, or seemingly unmotivated based on the existing record." In fact, even the text in the former Boise City Code's arbitrary and capricious standards, clarifying that a difference of opinion when evidence on the record could support multiple interpretations did not qualify as arbitrary and capricious, is supported by the current legal standards. I did a Google search on arbitrary and capricious legal definition. I didn't include any search terms related to Boise or any projects or Supreme Court cases. Even an excerpt from the AI summary pulled from the source across the web supports this. The definition: an action is considered arbitrary and capricious if it lacks a rational basis or explanation, or if the decision maker failed to consider important aspects of the problem, offered an explanation that contradicts the evidence, or made a clear error in judgment. And the burden of proof is to successfully argue that an agency action is arbitrary and capricious. The challenger must demonstrate that the agency's actions were willful and unreasoned, not just a disagreement over the merits of the decision. This finding that a difference of opinion is not arbitrary and capricious is also supported by the 9th District Court standard of review interpretations. Again, I urge you to not move forward with this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burney. Is there anybody else online that wishes to testify who has not already? Okay, I don't see any additional hands. I'll check one more time momentarily, but now I want to go to the chambers. So if you have not testified and you would like to testify now, you're more than welcome to come on up, and same thing as before. We'll get your name and address, and same thing with 3 minutes. And if there's anybody else, I would encourage you to come sit in the front row and be ready to go. Hi.
Hi, I actually signed up online yesterday, so I just wanted to know that. My name is Jackie Davidson, and my address is 8107 West Canterbury Court in Boise, Idaho. And Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I really appreciate, I'm saying the same thing, but we really do appreciate your work, and we see as citizens, we are seeing that there is a power takeover. I feel that there is a power takeover being done by the mayor and maybe some of the city council to get their way. And so what it does is it makes this commission irrelevant, because if they can just change your decisions without coming back to you, then it makes you irrelevant. So I would strongly suggest that you vote this down and keep the security, the separation between the committee, this commission, and the city council, and keep doing your great job, great work. Thanks. I'm not going to say any more because it's already been said.
Okay, thank you so much for hanging out. We appreciate it. Is there anybody else in the chambers that wishes to testify who has not already, or anybody online who hasn't testified? Okay. Seeing none on either. Okay, let's go ahead and call that our public testimony. Yeah, we're about to. Okay, so we're going to head into rebuttal. However, we're going to take a break at this time and get ourselves together for about 5-6 minutes. Then we'll come back, hear rebuttal from staff, and then the item will be before the commission. Okay, we're going to go ahead and bring everything back. And as I mentioned at the outset, you may have caught this. There's two main types of hearings. This is the type that has a little more flexibility in the process. And so we're going to exercise a little bit of that flexibility now. And before we go into rebuttal, there's going to be a few questions from the commission of staff, and then we'll go into rebuttal, and then we'll go into our recommendation. Commissioner Doan, I think you have a couple.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my question I have is, somebody brought this up and I just wanted to ask, what standards does the planning staff use when evaluating applications? So the conversation was that it sounded like we would just be getting unvetted applications, but I just wanted to have that conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Doan. Yes, so in all cases, planning staff would still provide the same level of review that we do currently. So the way that you receive a conditional use permit in front of you with a staff report in which staff are providing a recommendation of approval or denial. And I believe and in the case of a conditional use permit, not only are we reviewing the proposal for conformance with the zoning code, so setbacks, other dimensional standards. If it is a conditional use, staff will first review that application for its alignment with the approval criteria, which are shown on the screen. And we would recommend one way or the other based off of its conformance with this. The commission would then review all of the record before them in the public hearing and all of the testimony, ask questions of staff and the applicant, and then they would also determine if they feel that the application meets these findings and criteria. And so that would be the decision. And in a de novo review, that means that an applicant or a party of record could appeal that decision made by planning and zoning, just like they do today. And it would go to city council. And that record is now additive so that you have a new record in which we can add more public testimony, more information. Council can ask questions just like how you were asking questions today. And then they would also be held to this same standard that that application meets these standards. And they would have to make a decision reasoned on all of these same things. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and go into rebuttal.
Thank you for the opportunity to respond. I first want to recognize the public service that the Planning and Zoning Commission provides, providing technical expertise and thoughtful review for many permits, including ones where you are the final decision-making authority, such as variances and conditional use permits, but also on applications where you are only a recommending body, such as subdivisions, rezonings, annexations, and the reason why we're here tonight, legislative decisions to amend the zoning code. The introduction of de novo review for conditional use permits does not undermine the role of planning and zoning, but adds to the process in cases where an appeal of a CUP is sought. Very similar to how we're going through the public hearing process tonight, listening to residents and responding to questions, all of which are very important parts of the process and will be valuable to City Council. It does not mean that City Council will completely disregard the thoughtful deliberation made by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It means that City Council will be able to build on and develop an even richer record on the expertise of this very commission. It gives City Council the opportunity to consider the PNC decision as one made by a technical body, but also allows City Council to weigh that land use decision against other aims of the city. City Council does not have unlimited discretion. The council will be required to follow the same zoning code as planning and zoning and will need to meet the approval criteria for the application. This means that yes, the City Council can overturn the PNC decision, but also means that City Council could very well agree with PNC. It could add conditions to mitigate impacts identified with new information presented, or it could remand the application back to planning and zoning for further deliberation. Ultimately, de novo review puts City Council as the elected body in a position to be accountable for difficult and contentious land use decisions that have far-reaching community impacts.
Okay, thank you very much. The item is now before the commission, and we are a recommending body to council as a reminder.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Torres.
maybe before we have a motion, I just kind of wanted to put some thoughts out and kind of see where the commission, how the commission feels before we vote on a motion or propose a motion. I'm struggling with this one. I just want to start by saying, I mentioned in my questions earlier, concern about the appearance of conflict of interest or corruption. I want to be clear, I do not see any evidence of corruption here, but my concern is the process, particularly in our current political climate. Any appearance that the rules aren't fair or that this isn't being considered in a way that benefits the public concerns me a little bit. Having said that, we say at the beginning of every meeting, we are volunteers appointed to our positions by the mayor and approved by council. We are approved or reapproved for this position by them. And they are the ultimate decision makers of the city. This is not a normal application like we would normally hear. It is a policy question, and they are the ultimate policy makers. So I'm kind of, like I said, I'm struggling on it. I'm not sure I'm convinced that there's necessarily anything broken with the current process, but I also understand that this is something that it's a complicated situation that the city is trying to figure out the best way to address, and I acknowledge that. I also think it's worth noting too that several people commented on the zoning code just being decided, recently, and it shouldn't be reviewed every 2 years. One of the conditions of this zoning code was it would be reviewed at regular intervals and changes would be made, whether it's a change like this or whether it's correcting, minor errors here and there or making adjustments to what's not working and what needs to work better. So in all honesty, I probably could go either way on this one. I kind of just want to feel, kind of get a feel for what other members of the commission think on it.
Thank you, Commissioner Torres. I want to be careful in this. I think we should try to get a motion on the table and then have as much robust discussion as we care to have. I'm totally good with the discussion, but I think we ought to do that inside the general rules of order. So I'm hoping we can get a motion, and whatever happens of that motion is not the point at this particular junction. It's really just about getting it official. So if we can get a motion in a second, then we can go for it.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mooney.
I'll take a stab at it. I respectfully recommend that we deny zoning ordinance amendment 25-2 for a number of reasons. I agree with the inconsistent language cleanup and clarifying language in the existing code. I agree with the refining the arbitrary and capricious standard, but I believe the introduction of de novo review is an unnecessary process change that is not required and is fraught with some political peril, as Commissioner Torres just said.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Mooney to recommend denial to City Council for the item at hand. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
I have a second by Commissioner Torres.
With the provision that I reserve the right to change my mind.
Of course. Okay, with that, is there any discussion? Guessing there is. Commissioner Mooney, do you want to jump into it again, or do you feel good with what you just said?
No, I could jump in. We obviously serve on behalf of the elected officials, and this is a respectful recommendation from us regarding this zoning ordinance amendment. All of us have different backgrounds. In my case, I was a neighborhood advocate and was asked to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission by the planning staff. So I'm sensitive to neighborhood issues, and I'm sensitive to Veterans Park and any neighborhood that brings up process problems and conflicts that might be appearance only. Our job is to administer the code to allow our elected officials to concentrate on bigger policy issues and not burden themselves with the details of CUPs and all the other things that we do. We serve them. And as a servant, I'm respectfully offering this as, I don't think we need to do this. And my position was kind of telegraphed in my questions, which was the burden's on the applicant. And if the applicant gives us a substandard application and we deny it, and we make no error in administering the code, then I believe the council should just say, you just gave us a bad application, applicant, go back and start all over again. And they've got the record at P&Z and they've got the record at the council appeal to inform their new application. And I think that's the healthiest process rather than this new process, which is effectively what they did with Interfaith Sanctuary. They did a de novo review. And I think those of us that participated in that process would agree what city council heard was not what we heard. And I likely would have voted just like council and approved it based on all the conditions that staff put together after the fact. But that's not a burden that the city should take on. That's a burden on the applicant. They should improve their application.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mooney. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Seha.
I struggled with this. My day job is ensuring compliance, right? And so I think about this amendment, and I think about in my day job when a federal agency says to me or us, hey, you guys are not complying with this. The first thing we do is we try to address the issue, right? And so when I looked at this amendment, I thought, okay, we had this court case decision. Now the city's trying to address the issue that isn't just applicable to interfaith, right? It's applicable to all CUPs. But at the same time, and so, part of me is like, okay, I see where they're coming from. But at the same time, I hear Commissioner Mooney, right? Like, is de novo review appropriate? So I'm struggling.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Seha. Probably the right side.
No, right. Ladies first.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Doan.
I too am struggling with this. A lot of the language we've talked about tonight actually is, applying to the appeals section of the zoning code. So I appreciate the cleaning up of the taking out P&Z recommends to council and just making it commission. So it's very clear that it could be the design review commission, it could be historical preservation. So I appreciate that. I'm appreciative. I understand the cleaning up, the arbitrary and capricious. It's, I understand refining it, making it clearer. I'm still struggling, I guess I'll say, with the optics of the timing of this. When the new zoning code went into play, there was, supposed to be some review of the code and see if there's changes that need to be made. I feel that this should be a broader scope and take into consideration other areas of code that needs to change that have nothing to do with the appeal process. I just feel like it is a knee-jerk reaction to what happened. And I guess I'm going to support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Doan. Appreciate your comments.
All right, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I'll jump in. I've been quiet. First of all, I want to thank everybody here. You guys are awesome. Boise's great. Y'all do your homework. I've been up here for 5 or 6 years. I was appointed by the previous mayor. I was chair when the new zoning code came through, ran all those hearings. You guys, this might have been the best testimony I think I've ever heard up here. I mean, your level of preparedness, your research, your homework was fantastic. So well done. Kudos. I truly have no idea which way I'm going to vote on the motion. I am right down the middle. And here's why. You know, I agree with Commissioner Mooney and his review and his statements. But I also could see where potentially this could lead to better outcomes for the city, right? Like, we don't always get it right. I mean, love the love from you guys today, right? We don't always get it right. Council doesn't always get it right. But counter to the motion that potentially this could tease out, if this process is approved, goes into effect, it could tease out more information after this body or other bodies review an application and have a better outcome, right? Now, that doesn't mean it's always gonna be a popular outcome. It could be an unpopular outcome, but hopefully it's better for the city and the city in the long run. So that's where I sit right now. And you know, this is, I mean, just being honest, like, does my vote matter? I don't know if it matters, right? This is coming down from council. This is a change that they would like to see. And I don't want to sound fatalistic. I take this role, you know, probably more seriously than I should, quite honestly. I've agonized over some of the decisions we've made, you know. So I'm just kind of laying bare my thoughts right now, you know, and I could go either way. She calls my name. Abstain? Yes, no, doesn't matter. I don't know. So sorry, I'm being very honest right now, you know. And I do truly hope if it passes and it goes into effect, I do truly hope that it leads to better outcomes for the city. And, you know, secondarily to that, you know, council is on the record as saying that, you know, they have the accountability. This is accountability, right? You guys are accountability. You guys talking to them, you guys telling them your frustrations about applications, right? And so that's what accountability looks like. I suspect this won't have a huge effect on a lot of the CUPs that we see. A lot of the CUPs and the applications we see, they want to get them through. They want to get their projects going. They want to get them moving. The big ones are going to end up at council, and they're going to have to deliberate that and get more information, most likely, right? So I'm rambling, and I'm going to stop now.
Okay. I guess that's probably my turn. I know Commissioner Torres is probably, all of you are ready to jump back in. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to deny the application that's in front of us, or the amendment to the code that's in front of us. I will be voting in opposition to the motion, but not because I want to. I love this city. I love this city so dang much. And Connie, you said it. You said to us, you want to get it right. 4 hours a night was probably pushing it for about how much sleep I was getting during the IFF hearing period, because of that very thing, of how much I care, how much we care about this city, these applications, all of you, and this process and this role that we volunteer and have been asked to serve. I do this because I enjoy it, and I have 2 daughters at home who I'm planting seeds with, because I want them later in their life to give back to their community, and maybe it's this one. I am very afraid that this is going to make this body a bit more or less relevant, because I think that we are going to get applications in here, and they know that it's likely going to be appealed. Doesn't really matter. And I fear that, because we care, and I don't want to see us not care and, you know, this process somehow be compromised. That being said, we serve at the the choice of the mayor and the council. They're the elected officials. The city of Boise doesn't have to even have a planning and zoning commission, but we have one. Many cities throughout the state of Idaho don't have one, but we serve here, and here's where we are. But in this instance, this mayor and this council are requesting this change. And I don't feel that I have certainly the authority as a volunteer to tell them, which they have lawful right to do according to the code and LUPA, that they shouldn't do this. This is their ask. But I'm very, very nervous about this ask. But as it relates to this motion and it moving forward to the council, I'm going to be going against the motion and think that we should approve it ultimately, or recommend approval.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Seha.
We can consider, if this didn't pass, we can consider approving with some slight tweaks to the language. So, I mean, the appeal, if you go to that particular section of row 365, an appeal to City Council of a P&Z decision on a conditional use permit. I'm not saying that I support this. I'm just bringing it to the table for consideration. A conditional use permit shall be a de novo review. City Council may develop a new record on the appeal and shall apply the criteria in section 11-5-5-3 without deference. Could we strike out without? And I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if that's possible, but we bring a different perspective to this table based on volunteer work, whether that's neighborhood or whatnot, and personal interest. And so, yeah, I just thought I would bring that up. I'm not saying that our decision is, as Chairman or Commissioner Schaefer said, we don't always get it right. But I would like to think that we probably spend a lot more hours reviewing these applications and planning reports than our city council staff do. So they should at least be looking at the record and not just, automatically going to, we'll look at this, but we're not going to maybe take it seriously.
So at this point, we do have a motion on the floor, and that motion is to deny the amended code. You're correct, however, and that certainly, if there's a desire to change it and to alter language, we can. But at the immediate moment, we do have a motion. I think Commissioner Schaefer, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thanks. I hear you, Commissioner Seha. I hear you. I'm more of a mindset to just do a straight up or down vote here. I think that this draft was written, by staff with input from council, from legal, and I don't particularly feel like amendments at this juncture are warranted. So that's my opinion. I'm obviously one of 6 up here, so but I'm telling you where I'm coming down. I think the other point I failed to mention previously, though, is that the staff's approval does come into play for my thought process as well, right? The recommendation for approval does come into play to this as well. So just some other things that are weighing on my thought process here, right?
Commissioner Mooney, thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah, I agree with your thoughts, Commissioner Danley, regarding how this is. Obviously, this is what the city and our elected officials want, or it wouldn't be before us. But I also think that they deserve our honest perception of how it's going to be perceived by the city, and based on our experience on this volunteer commission, from the application, I mean, basically just from our decision criteria and the code amendments procedures, I mean, is required for public convenience or general welfare. I'm sticking with that. It's not required for public convenience or general welfare. I think the current process works, and asking applicants to come forward with better applications is a better process than trying to burden the city staff with fixing a flawed application.
Thank you, Commissioner Mooney. Did you want to add something?
Sorry, Mr.
You don't have to apologize. This is the
I'm
process.
really struggling with this as well, because last Tuesday, the lithium battery Idaho Power application went before City Council, and it was appealed by the neighbors. And what was very clear, if you listen to that, was that City Council said, "Hey, you know what? Our hands are tied. You know, we could add conditions to this, but we can't add conditions to this." And so I don't know, like, yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Is that Commissioner Mooney again?
Follow up again on Commissioner Seah's comments. A comprehensive and holistic review of the entire modern zoning code is long overdue. We said we were going to do it. One of my lines of questioning when this was before us was, do we have the city resources to properly digest the lessons learned over the last year with the new code? And instead of doing a big review, what we did is we did a targeted review. And we saw a lot of testimony about that. And I think we need to make that clear to the council that it doesn't look good.
So that's, you know, I think certainly a discussion that is ripe. I was sitting on the same spots, you know, as that code went through, and we did discuss that. But I do think that it's an issue that, while related to this, is certainly a much broader effort and a bigger lift that would take some time and resources. Before us tonight in this moment, though, is what we have. We have a motion, we have a second, we've had some discussion. So unless we have any other compelling testimony that hasn't been already raised, we should probably go to a vote. See how this plays out. Okay.
I'm not sure any of my testimony was compelling to begin with. So let's do this.
All right. With that, let's go ahead and have the clerk call the roll. Just as a reminder, Commissioner Mooney made the original motion to deny. What is the even number? I don't even know.
ZOA 25 dash.
Yeah, ZOA 25-02. We had a second by Commissioner Torres.
Danley.
No. Correct? I'm voting no against the denial. I've got to get my
Schaefer.
in here.
No.
Mooney.
Yes.
Deha.
No.
Torres.
Yes.
Doan.
Yes.
3 in favor, 3 opposed.
And Commissioner Moore left 3 hours ago. Now it's her fault. Okay, so we have a deadlock, and that's been a long time since we've had that. How do we move forward on this? We're going to need another motion at some point, and we're either going to need to talk our way through this, amend what's in front of us. There's no deferral option. I don't see that.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Commissioner Mooney.
Let me I'll make a stab at it. I respectfully recommend that we approve zoning ordinance amendment 25-2 with additional language to recommend to the city council that a comprehensive review of the entire code be accomplished before the end of the calendar year.
Okay. We
I'll
have a
second.
motion.
I'll second. It's March, right?
It's
April.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'll second.
Okay, so let me make sure I have this correct. We have a motion by Commissioner Mooney to approve the item before us, ZOA -25, right? -02. And an additional condition of approval be recommended to council that a holistic comprehensive audit of the new zoning code be achieved, presented, etc., before the end of the calendar year. Merry Christmas. Is that correct, Commissioner Mooney? Do I have the gist of that right?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and I have a second by Commissioner Schaefer. Is there any discussion?
None for me. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I obviously voted against the previous motion as we've deliberated and considered my stance here. And I believe that I'm in favor of this motion, and I do agree. And I've been pounding that drum fairly regularly about some code review. So I appreciate Commissioner Mooney taking a stab at getting that process moving in earnest so that we can start to evaluate some of these other items within the new code.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Torres.
Yeah, I'm still struggling with this, but I will say, I will echo your comment earlier about how, I love this city too. And every time we vote on anything up here, I want to get it right. And so I've expressed my concerns, but I'm willing to support this motion to move this forward with our feedback. And they will have the public record of this so they can see our comments from the previous failed motion and our concerns that were echoed there. So I will support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Torres.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Steha.
I will also be supporting the motion. As I mentioned earlier, I think the city council feels like they need to address the issues that came out of the decision, the Supreme Court decision, and this is what they and staff have determined may help address those issues. So I will be supporting the motion. I would encourage all of you to continue to actively engage in this process, be it P&Z and City Council.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeha. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Doan.
I think reluctantly, I'm probably going to support the motion. I still feel that the timing is not good, but having the condition of asking them to get the complete rezone or review of the zoning code kind of takes care of that. I do appreciate and still believe that the important part of this cleanup or clarification is it's all on the appeals process, and it clarifies that it's any of the commissions, not just planning and zoning. And the arbitrary and capricious change is, I do think is important. So with that, I'll go for the vote.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm going to be in support of the motion. I'll be pretty brief. I don't even remember if I said thank you to everybody who showed up. If I didn't, I'm genuinely appreciate everybody's comments and coming out tonight and the letters that you wrote. There were, again, as I mentioned, there were a lot of really wonderful things said and a lot of shared concerns, frankly. I appreciate you, Commission, for being creative and working our way through this process. And I think that ultimately this is a good outcome. I think we need to get to a good, strong audit, so to speak, on what's working and what needs to be tweaked. And I'll be supporting of this motion. So, okay, let's go. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Danley.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Mooney.
Yes.
Seha,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, thank you all. That concludes tonight's proceedings.